Well, this is the celebration today. We're in the neutralised zone. It might take an awful long time to get past all of the, I don't know, washing machine factories, you name it. We'll be we'll be doing a little bit of that today. And we'll also be pondering, of course, throughout how each of these jerseys has been won. Well, of course, Remco owns two of them. But a fine finish, I must admit, for Ayuso as well. He's really animated this race. And third place on the podium is nothing to be sniffed at. I almost feel sorry for Enric Mas that he's actually not on the front line here. But nonetheless, what a great win yesterday by Carapaz, underscoring his greatness. And three-stage wins, Sean, and a jersey, a polka dot jersey. That's not a bad assembly, is it? Come to Sean for his thoughts in a few moments' time. But yes, Carapaz, just, wow. Talk about pulling it out the fire. That was brilliant. Sean Carapaz is going to carry that polka dot jersey home, and with a great deal of delight and possibly relief, considering the way that this race started.
He did have a great Vuelta after starting struggling a bit in the earlier part of the race and losing time against the men in the GC standings. The first mountain top finish we had, from Bilbao to Picoiano, and he lost a lot of time there, was struggling. And we could see then that he wasn't in the shape he needed to be, and it went on from there, losing more time in these short uphill finishes, but really came good, and started winning these stages. And then it just went on from there. He had the form, and the form, of course, that brings the confidence, and the confidence then comes with a win. It's amazing what they can do for you, and he just went from strength to strength. And the way he rode yesterday as well, out there on the breakaway, being very intelligent, and that's the way he rides. Wasn't making efforts when he didn't have to, compared to other riders were attacking and going up the road like headless chickens. But he just followed.
Speak your mind, Sean.
He knew who to follow. He knew when to go. And it worked out from in the end. It was really tight, but if you just read back through the race, the way he rode the stage yesterday, that's the way you've got to do it in those situations. When you have so many men in the breakaway and the main peloton of contenders, stirring it up behind quite early, you have to conserve energy as much as possible for the end. And he just had that he had enough.
He had. Well, just enough. That was the El Gasco Dam, by the way. One of the most important civil engineering projects of the 18th century. Looks like it's dried up behind it by now. But yes, its aim, of course, was to collect water from the Gardrama River. But looks like it's been superseded. The dam was built along with some parts of the Gardrama Canal. Gosh, they were busy back then. Unlike the peloton, just for the time being. This is one of the gentlest rollouts I've seen, possibly ever.
Well, what does that tell you, Carlton? It's not going to be any faster when we get to kilometre zero.
Let's see. I mean, the kid on the bike here doing a rolling selfie here is...
It's free, Billy.
he could actually be doing free. Yes, he could be. A little bit of a chit-chat going on at the moment. Of all the teams here, Sean, I always ask this question. Who do you think will have been disappointed by the race? I mean, looming large surely has to be Jumbo-Visma with Primož Roglic. And, of course, the disappointment of that.
Yes, well, I think Primož Roglic and Jumbo-Visma are going to be very disappointed, because coming to this race was a big objective for Primož after, going out of the Tour of France. And it was looking really good. The way they hit off in the team time trial in Holland, it was a great start, but it didn't end good.
All the jerseys together. We're in a neutralised area. Destination Madrid today. 96.7 kilometres once we finally go racing. And as you can see, you could probably keep up jogging at the moment. It is not the most focused beginning, but it will be extremely busy at the end. Just been chatting away about those that will have been disappointed by the race. I mean, we've had so many withdrawals. It's partially due to COVID, but of course from injury as well, famously. We lost Jay Vine while he was wearing the polka dot jersey. And, of course, we lost, of course, Primož Roglic during the race. But in celebration, we have to acknowledge that Remco Evenepoel, well, just a masterful performance by a very young man. And let's not forget his first Grand Tour win. Let's wonder and speculate as much as we like, I guess, as to how many more will come. But what a result as well from Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl, known as the Wolf Pack, a team that is used to collecting stage wins, but this is something else. And here's Patrick Lefebvre. Well, congratulations today.
C'est bon pour toi, Patrick? Vous avez déjà sorti le... C'est quoi? C'est du
vin clair Constantia.
Ok, pour célébrer la victoire de...
Pour
célébrer cette victoire de Remco, félicitations. Finalement,
Remco,
il a pas tremblé aujourd'hui.
Il a été stressé comme tout le monde, je pense.
Well, like everyone, he's been stressed, of course, and for the first time I saw him making faces, but that's normal. He's only 22 years of age, so it's not easy to win a Grand Tour. Just talking about the tears that he shed at the end. Belgium has been waiting for a victory for 44 years. It's an historical moment for the sport and, of course, for your country. Absolutely, yes, he says. People here, well, many of them not born back then. I'm old now, and it was during the era of Merckx and the Moink, and yeah, we should have been all thinking that Remco was the future winner of a World Tour. There were many pros and many cons as well along the way. He took his time, and for sure the crash took away from him 6 months, maybe a year of his career. But I think that Liège was almost like a switch being thrown there. We were saying that the red jersey was giving him credibility and a lot of respect in the peloton. What would you like to tell Remco? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank him for believing in our team when he was only 17 years of age. I had lunch with his parents and with him at a train station in Zurich. And second, since then, he started an amazing collaboration. And now he's grown a lot, was the question. Yeah, I promised his parents that I would take care of him as if he was my son. And obviously, he has parents still, but we are proud of him, like a father. Patrick Lefebvre, a big old softie, it turns out, Sean. He was getting emotional there himself.
Yes, well, it's not surprising because it's his first big 3-week tour to win with the team, and he's been around a long time. He was a professional back in the time when I was in the peloton. Actually, I raced with him a bit, and yeah, he's had so much success. You know, when you look back to the races they were winning, and for years there they were winning the biggest number of races by a long shot by all the teams in the professional ranks, and this is his first 3 week or so. It's normal he's a bit emotional, and he probably have a bit of that Vino Blanco there as well.
He did indeed. By the way, the dam that we saw, the El Gasco Dam, is a folly. It was abandoned before it could be completed. Well, thankfully, I guess that almost sums up Primož Roglič, doesn't it? But I don't think that can take the shine off Remco Evenepoel's victory, Sean. Yes, we would have liked to have seen that battle, but he was already emphatically in control by the time that Remco sadly left the race.
Yes, very much so. You know, it looked like that he was in control right from the beginning, and the first mountaintop finish, as I talked about, which was, you know, the more serious one, stage 6, he put a stamp on the race big time, and, you know, put time into a lot of the riders. I think Roglič about 1 minute and 20 he lost to Evenepoel, and, you know, there was a stack of riders there who were talking about for the GC: Sivakov, Simon Yates, there was Kelderman, Ben O'Connor, all of those guys losing a lot of time, and some of the riders losing a lot more, you know, over 1.5 minutes to some of the other riders. So from that point he was looking very, very dominant, and there's always the question when you're going so well in the first week of racing, in the first really, the bigger rendezvous in the first week, you say, will they last that? And with Evenepoel, of course, you know, he hadn't any experience. We haven't seen him in a 3-week race before. All of that was a little bit of a question mark, but he put all those to bed over this past 3 weeks. And, you know, with Roglič going out, that's not going to be, I think, in in the future, the Palmares, we will see Remco Evenepoel winning, the Vuelta on such a year, and that's what counts. And the way he has went about and won the race, his first time competing really to fight for a 3-week tour. The way he's done it, on the road, tactic-wise, keeping his cool, all of that, an amazing performance.
I'd say they're going about jogging pace at the moment, Sean.
Well, we could hang in there, Carlton. That's my pace.
Well, you might. I think I'd be a bit tuckered out by now. Still with 2.5 kilometres to go until what would be my finish line. Yeah, the crowds, it's been wonderful to see them turning out in force. And of course, we were playing along the northern coast of Spain, and we love that part of the world where the Basques were out in force. Seems a long time ago, Sean, when we started in Utrecht. It's been a journey, hasn't it?
Yes, well, when you're in the race as a rider or when you're commentating on, when you look back or you think back to the first week and you say, that day, and it seems so long ago, and just to get it in your mind again, it's so difficult. You forget a lot of those days and the stages, except for the ones where there's something majorly happened, and that is a 3-week race. And we often hear the riders talking about when you're in the race, you do not know what day you have. You just go on and you stay 7, day 9, and it goes on by stages. And some people, when you're talking with the riders at night time, you're talking about something, you want to know what day it is, and you have to ask the rider beside you, what day are we today? Is it Friday or Saturday or Sunday? And that is what happens in the stage race. You just, you get in the zone, you concentrate on what's happening in the following day and the number of days to come. If there's a big mountain stage, you know that in your mind, and that's the focus you've got to have in the 3-weeker.
Taking every day at a time as well. It's not like playing the long game and thinking too deeply, unless of course you have a battle plan for the overall classification, I guess you might say. Some take it day by day, and that really didn't release too many rewards, I'm afraid, for Thibaut Pinot. We talk about the disappointments. Of course, there are always far more disappointments than indeed achievements when you have so many riders. I'm just looking at Tim Merlier, though. He's got a big occasion today. I think basically he has to remind us, Tim Merlier, is he here? Yes, he is. But today is the day where he's going to have to stand tall. Didn't work out for Thibaut Pinot, Sean. There were so many brutal battles to get into a breakaway. It took it out quite a few before the race had even started day by day.
Yes, it was a difficult one to get into some of the breakaways, but yesterday it was a day where it suited the earlier part of the stage, that 10 kilometres. The racing was pretty much full on, but there was a lot of riders just waiting, holding back until we got onto the first time of the day, and then they sprung into action. And Thibaut Pinot got into the breakaway, as he did on other days as well, but just wasn't good enough in the end. And I think he rode a very good race in the time he made the break of the day, but he came up against riders better than him, and in those sorts of finishes he just ran out of gas quite a bit from the finish. He was never really in the very final shake-up at all. He was gone, well before the real serious battle out of the breakaway started.
Plenty of other racing going on at the moment. We remind you the Ceratizit Challenge by La Vuelta, the women's race, has been brilliant. And it's great to see women's racing, Sean, being supported by the Grand Tours.
Yes, it is, and it's something that we've been hearing about, and it's been talked about a lot over the past number of years. Of course, the Tour de France Féminine, that was something that we were always looking forward to, and eventually it happened this year. Of course, this one, it's grown. The Vuelta, it's grown in the last number of years. The number of days we've had have been grown. Remember, Carlton, when it was just a one day around Madrid here on the finishing circuit, and then it became a number of days of racing, and that's what we need. And it's great to see that we have, all the big 3-weekers now have a woman tour.
Thank heaven for that. And women's cycling, very much part of our thoughts constantly on GCN, Eurosport and Discovery, of course, and more coming our way next season. Well, just before we hit the beginning of our Neutralised start here. Let's just take a count on what has happened. The Ceratizzi Challenge Stage 5. Lisa Balsamo winning it. Yes, the last stage of the Ceratizzi Challenge into Madrid. Annemiek van Vleuten won the overall classification. She won this year, of course, the Giro, at 2 stages, and the GC. And the Tour de France Féminin, the end of July, 2 stages, and the GC. And the Vuelta, 1 stage in the GC. Well, 34 days of racing in 2022, 12 wins, 9 in the World Tour, 97th pro win in an amazing career. Sean, that is just mind-blowing.
Yes, it is mind-blowing, and when you look at the performances she puts up, the way she goes about them, she is an amazing athlete. And the Tour of France this year, she was sick in the beginning, and we all thought it was going to be over for that. She might not finish the race. She rallied through, she fought on there the first couple of days, came around, and the final 2 days she blitzed the race and just rode away from everybody.
I remember as well that she got extraordinarily emotional after breaking a duck as well, after what had been a difficult period for her as well. Every rider, Sean, has dips in their form. It's a question of just having the power, the strength of will, and the physique, of course, to get yourself back into winning ways and just put all the bad stuff behind you. And as with Annemiek van Vleuten, of course, Remco Evenepoel is a perfect example of that.
Yes, well, that's something that you have to be able to do, and as a professional bike rider, no matter what category you're in, you have to have that willpower to be able to get back. And the big champions, of course, that's what makes them the champions as well. When you're going through a bad time in a race, and everybody gets a bad day, even the big champions, there are some days you're not feeling that good, and you're just hoping that it's not going to be a big day in the mountains that you get that one. But when you get it, you have to be able to bluff your way through, as they say, and get onward and get over that. And it's the same situation with injury. When you get injured or you get a run of bad luck, maybe you're not in the best of form for many months, you have to keep on working, keep fighting. And a lot of riders are able to do that, but some, they have difficulty and they just fade away and they never come back to the level they have been at. And we always say, well, was it because of that sickness, was it because of that injury, or was it because they hadn't that willpower to keep on working that bit more to get back to the level they had been before their downturn in shape?
Well, it's been remarkably consistent, I must say, from Remco Evenepoel. There were a few moments where he had a wobble, but that's always going to happen throughout a race such as this. His first stage win, of course, came in the time trial into Alicante. And then he doubled that up spectacularly so within this race. And it was a wonderful win up to Pional. And he sustained all of the blows that were issued against him, constantly raining down. They tried, as well they might, to find some space between themselves and Evenepoel, but it just wasn't to be. Richard Carapaz, 3 stage wins and a polka dot jersey going his way. I think that's a great piece of retrieval after a highly disappointing opener to this race. There's the old and the new, Sean, on your screen now, Ayuso and Valverde.
Yes, I think that's that's Rozas there on the front, which
Beg your pardon.
Ayuso, but yes, it's a Movistar man, of course. And
do you know what? I make that mistake so often.
Yes.
They use the same razor, which
yes.
is not a very good one.
Yeah. And maybe you need to go for a night check, Carlton.
Oh, do you know what? I need a rest.
Well, we all do at times, and that is something. When you see the riders, and you just jump to the conclusion, oh yes, Valverde, and it's easy to make that. And when you have riders as well, as I mentioned there a number of days ago, when they're riding along like this, and then you see them in full effort, and you see a front-on shot, their face is totally different, because with this, with the effort they're making, the faces they pull, they change so much. But yeah, it's another one, an old stager there. Rozas, of course, he's been around a long time, and the young man coming up, you saw there, he's had a really brilliant Vuelta, because again, you know, a young guy coming in, all that pressure, and held up very well.
Time for some Vuelta stories, social media. This is Danny Martinez, Spanish TV presenter. He hosts Spain's Got Talent, if you're wondering what was going on there. I must admit, I took one of those pictures for Ashley House as well. Bless him, our former colleague, now with Bahrain Victorious. You may have spotted him within the cars. Great guy. Nice to see him doing fantastic work within that team that's had a fantastic race, actually, with Fred Wright. Didn't really happen for Mikkel Landa, though, within that squad, I'm afraid. But it all happened for Remco Evenepoel. Just waiting for us to get underway. When's this neutral going to start, Sean? Once everyone's taken a leak and we can start racing?
Well, 6.7 kilometres is the official neutralised section, and we should be getting close to that, but it's difficult to know here because the way we're rolling along, and yeah, it will be interesting to see how much will they up the pace. They will have it up. They will up it a little bit, but there'll be a long number of kilometres here where it'll be going at this very casual pace, as you know, as the tradition in the end, final day of a 3-week tour.
And there they go. Well, kind of. It is the final day of La Vuelta. And as you can see, they're not going terribly quickly at the moment. The flag has been waved and we now are officially racing. However, our race director wants to, I think, pass on a few words to those out front. They're sort of asking who fancies skittling off up the road here. And nobody wants to take the bait just yet, Sean.
Well, I'm not sure if he wants them to skittle up the road at this point. Don't know what he's, talking to about. What he's talking to the riders here, but it's going to be the normal ceremonies now as we roll along here, and it's calculated, for this the run in until we get onto the circuit, and then the racing will start. And nobody is going to dare to really push on here, and it's an understanding between all the teams and the riders.
Well, there we are. I did say to Sean, is anyone going to do anything silly in the GC with sometimes a second separating places? We saw Timo Ahrensman, of course, throwing the bike to the line to make sure that he got in front of Carlos Rodriguez, who of course was suffering out there. We felt desperately sorry for him, but it's going to stand the way it stands, save for, of course, the points that will be finally totted up at the end of the day in the sprint, the green jersey competition. Well, he did wave a flag, Sean, but this is he still wants a chit-chat here.
Yes, well, I think that's what we're expecting, and you can see that it's starting to roll a little bit faster than in the neutralised zone, but this is going to be the case for many kilometres now, and we'll see just this chat going on between the riders, coming up to also to the race director's car and having some words here. So that is going to be something we'll have to stay with for quite a number of kilometres.
Well, so many of them are stopping for a comfort break here. Tinkle time. We're not going to see much ground pictures either, Sean. We're going to have to stay on the helicopter to save blushes here. There'll be fines handed out. Well, time to catch up, I guess you might say. Later on, we'll be joined by Adam Blythe. He's due to come in with 75 kilometres to go, so that will probably be in about 4 hours at this pace. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Well, I guess, Sean, it's time for us to take account of the race then. We started, of course, in Utrecht in terrible weather, and in fact, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I must admit, but very, very cold. And it was a bit of a shock when we all came over to suddenly 33, 34 and more Celsius when we hit Spain.
Yes, well, it was a difficult start for a team time trial. With the wet conditions, the wet roads, and for the teams that were out earlier in the day, it was very wet roads, and it was scary, some of those roundabouts. But then it did, of course, dry up a little bit, not totally, so it was an advantage to the teams that went off later in the day. And from that point, it was, perfect weather for the racing, really good conditions, no rain at all in Spain that you can talk about. And the heat as well. It was never really that scorching conditions you can get in Spain, touching 40 degrees. It did get up to 35 or maybe 37, I can't remember exactly, but never for day after day where it was that real killer of a heat. So that helped the riders a lot, and the fatigue when you have to ride your bike every day in the very, very warm conditions, it can be a real killer for some of the riders.
I think for the home nation as well, the home win came very quickly with Soler, who incidentally has been given the overall combativity award, Sean, for the race. He won stage 5, of course, into Bilbao, which always kind of sets the emotional clocks at steady, doesn't it?
Yes, well, he did win a spectacular stage into Bilbao, and we all remember that final there. It looked like he was going to be maybe swallowed up in the end, but just about held on. And he's been very aggressive, and it's not surprising that he gets the most combativity award for the 3 weeks of racing. But again, I would ask the question. Yesterday, for example, he was too aggressive and racing too much earlier on the stage, and then paid the price dearly. When you look at other riders in the race, like a Carapaz and a number of the other ones, they waited for later in the day. And Soler, he had the legs, they were on fire, as we say in cycling terms, yesterday in the earlier part of the stage. But you cannot do that against the riders you're up against. When you got into that break, they were very classy riders for this sort of finish we had yesterday. And Soler paid the price, and you get the combativity award, which is, I think, 3,000 for winning the overall, but another stage win would have taken him 11,000. And we'd all remember next year, oh yes, Marc Soler, he won 2 stages last year on the Vuelta. We'd have to really think deep to remember who won the combativity award.
That is true. That is true. One man, of course, who won 2 stages, and not too far apart either, was Jay Vine. And one of the sad stories of the race, we'll be speaking plenty, I'm sure, about Primož Roglic's crash as well. But a real sadness about Jay Vine and his exit, because such a gentle character, but a brute on the bike, 2 stage wins, and the way that the manner of his victory as well, Sean, was so outstanding. He was looking like an amazing force within this race, and then sadly crashed out.
Yes, well, he had a super race and was going real well, and the mountain jersey was a great chance of taking it all the way to Madrid here this evening. But unfortunately, that big crash at high speed, a wrist injury, an open, I think he had a broken wrist, an open break, and it was a one where it was race over. So very disappointing when you're in that situation. And for Vine, to finish here in Madrid, we know the importance it is to have a jersey in a big 3 week, or that will make it more disappointing again. And it's just the risk of this bike racing, and sometimes you're just in the wrong place, and when you go down, you come out very badly out of it.
Rowan Dennis looks a bit tired, does not want the camera near him just for the time being. I'm very fond of Rowan Dennis. I love the way he races. I love his precocious attitude as well. Some find him prickly, I find him fascinating and royally entertaining. He's great. It's a shame for me as well, I'm afraid, that he's not going to the World Championships. I would have loved to see him there, but he's going to spend some time with his family, and you can hardly blame him for that. It's a lonely game that we play here, and I guess it's common for riders to find a little bit of stability away from the race because they just cannot. It's really you cannot explain just how difficult it is for them to be out and on the road with for so many months of the year. They need perhaps that little bit of stability that a family offers, or a great deal of stability, a good foundation. Is that why so many riders marry young, Sean? Remco Evenepoel's announced he's getting married this autumn at the age of 22.
Well, I don't know that one, Carlton. Do the most of them get married young? I'm not too sure on that, but yes, Remco Evenepoel, we did hear that he's getting married this winter, and it's all happening for him this year with the results he have had in the early part of the season, and now winning this his first big 3-week tour. But I think it does give him stability, that would be sure. And yeah, the riders, I think, talking about this year's World Championships, yeah, it's the one where riders are saying, well, that journey, will I be going well enough? And some decide at an earlier point that, yeah, it's maybe not for me this year, and decides to skip it.
Well, apparently Charles III ordered the expansion of this place, but obviously it's a different Charles III to our current King Charles III. Well, the man who was king of the hill was Richard Carapaz, wasn't he?
Enrique, enhorabuena, lo primero de todo, por ese podio de la Vuelta a España. ¿Qué tal te sientes en esta mañana, última jornada en la...
Well, it's Enrique Mas, I beg your pardon.
Muchas gracias a todos y contentos, ¿no?
Well, I'm obviously very, very happy with the way that things have gone.
45 días y nada, estar en el podio de la Vuelta otra vez es algo muy bonito para mí y para el equipo.
Well, it's not only good for me, obviously it's good for my team as well. So talk to us about the 3 weeks that you have, that we've seen you at the start, enjoying it, and then a bit more focused, of course. Tell us how it went. Well, we took it day by day. The only bad day was yesterday, to be honest, because I just didn't have the strength. But cycling's like this. Luckily, things went well for me on this Vuelta, and so I can be satisfied. Well, is it good that you could reverse your season by finishing in such a positive way? Well, only on the Tour. It all started with the crash in Tirreno Adriatico. Then we crashed in the Basque Country, and then on the Dauphiné, and then on the Tour de France. So it was very nice to be able to finish the season in this way. Very emotional one for him. At the beginning, he thanked everybody, of course, including his team and his family. And yes, just talking about that it's nice to be on the podium of this Vuelta. And a man that does get brutalised just a little bit by the press, I must admit. And it's taken a while for Spanish fans really to put their arm around him in certain ways, which is a shame, because as you've seen, he's genuinely a very nice guy. And proving that nice guys can win, or almost, I should say. Enrique Mas, we remind you, finishing this race in second place, 2 minutes and 5 down. I don't think there was much more he could have done, Sean, against Remco Evenepoel.
No, I don't think there was anything he could have done. And, we did see that, he tried so many times to test Remco Evenepoel on these mountaintop finishes, and attack after attack, but just never had Remco Evenepoel in difficulty at all. He never saw any cracks there from Remco Evenepoel, and again he comes up against a rider that's just that bit better than him in those mountaintop finishes. Of course, he's had Roglic in the past, and I think this is Matt's third time on the podium in the second step in the Vuelta. So yeah, it's a great performance, but again, you always want to get onto that the top one and win a 3-weeker, and yeah. It is one way you look at what you've been doing during the season, but we heard from Mass there as well. He had a number of crashes, a lot of bad luck, and all of that, it doesn't help your performance for your objectives later in the season.
Well, some of you heading off for a commercial break. A bit jealous, to be honest. The rest of you will stay with us, I hope. Well, it's not as action-packed as I'd hoped, Sean.
No, I don't think we could have expected much more than we have had here, Carlton.
Well, I wasn't expecting any less than I'd hoped for, but but that's come true.
Yes, well, it's a let's not forget it's a relatively short stage here, 96 kilometres, and then we'll get onto the circuit, of course, and at that point, the racing will really kick off. So it's not a long ways, and yeah, this is something that it's always been in the Vuelta where you have these easy run-ins, and people often ask why did they do that. Again, it's something that in the 3-weekers. When you have a stage finishing in the city and with laps, they normally roll in like this. The only time, of course, if you finish with a time trial, then of course everything is on. You have to have a race for the GC contenders. But in this situation, it suits. You get onto the circuit, and then we'll have this big sprint against the fast men at the end of the day.
Well, the Palacio del Pardo was part of the Bourbon family. You may know their biscuits. Yes, apparently they were made for their troops. Go figure. Anyway, I didn't think I had chocolate back in the days of Philip V, but we take what we can get. Yeah, can't wait for the Palacio Infante del Luis. That's going to be a treat. Jumbo-Visma banged about, Sean, in more ways than one. We're looking at Sam Oomen, who looks like he's been through the mill as well. Primož Roglic exiting, of course, after Eduardo Affini and Sepp Kuss out of this race. They're strong man in the mountains, and of course their GC contender just stripped away from them. What a shame.
Yes, well, it was a big disappointing one when the main man for Primož Roglic, Sepp Kuss, went out on day 9 approximately, and yeah, we were wondering what effect that would have had in the final week of the race. But unfortunately, with Roglic going out himself, then with that crash in the sprint to the line, yeah, it was a one we didn't get a chance to see exactly what way Roglic could have worked in this race. But he was looking good, looking better, and it's always disappointing to see the riders who are going to challenge to try and win the race. But there was many others as well, of course. Simon Yates we lost after doing a very good time trial. Sivakov we lost also, who was looking very good in this race. But that is a 3-week tour, and if you look back through the Tour of France, the Tour of Spain as well over the years, there's always years that we lose a number of the favourites because of these crashes.
Just pondering the missing, really. Yeah, COVID accounted for an awful lot as it continues to loom large. Haven't actually counted up the absentees. I'll do that in a little while, but I believe there's 49 missing. That's a lot. That is an awful lot, I'm afraid. We had some great stories, though, throughout the race. Louis Meintjes finally getting a Grand Tour win as well, Sean. That brought a great deal of joy to my heart.
Sorry, what was that one, Carlton?
Louis Meintjes, stage 9, when he went into Perez.
Yes.
It's been a long time coming, 30 years of age now. We expected an awful lot from him.
Yes, well, it was a great performance, and we know Meintjes, he's been trying in those races, getting into breakaways, into GC, maybe losing time, then getting into a breakaway, being allowed into the breakaway because he's further down the GC. Objective is to see what will happen later in the day. and if possible go for a stage win, but also try and move in the GC standing up the way. And in this one he did that, and pulled off his stage victory, which was a great one to see. When a rider tries like that for many times and eventually gets to it, it's a one that they deserve very much, because the effort to get into the breakaway, first of all, for those lightweight riders in the earlier part of the stage, when it's maybe a flatter stage, they have to make these huge efforts and then be able to finish it off on a mountaintop finish. Always difficult, and he achieved that this year. That was something I think he was trying to achieve for many years, and eventually gets there.
It was a joy. But yes, COVID did blight us. We'll be pondering that a little more deeply in a short while. Great for those that could turn the clock back. It didn't happen for Valverde, it didn't happen for Nibali, but it did happen for Rigoberto. Around, of course, on stage 17 up to Tenturia. What a day that was.
Yes, well, what a day it was, and the way he rode as well in that final. He rode with experience as well, and that is something, you might not be the best rider, but if you pull out the experience that you have for so many years in the peloton, it can make the difference. And I think Rigoberto Urán, he just calculated right on that final climb, just kept enough a little bit in reserve for the final run to the line and got it. And what a fight it was to get to the finish line, because it was a majorly difficult final couple of 100 meters to the finish, and got his stage win, but also moved up in the GC standings. And since that time, that day, he has hung on well there, and he's in 9th place, so finishing the top 10 at his stage in his career, a great performance in this year's race.
It certainly was. I loved seeing Caden Groves win as well. I'd love to see actually Bike Exchange pull something out of the bag today. They've lost Colin O'Brien, unfortunately. But they do still have Mitch Hedburn, and will be hyper motivated, as they have been throughout, with Turbo Derber, Luke Durbridge, Lawson Craddock and the like. But yeah, it's another team that was hit by COVID, of course, with the absence of Simon Yates. They had to reboot themselves. I think Caden Groves, quite frankly, put a little sticking plaster on their the wounds of ambition, let's put it that way. Well, Spain had more than one win, of course, we remind ourselves, and I guess the Hispanic fans as well can count Richard Carapaz amongst their brothers. Jesus Herrada, though, for Cofidis. That was like bursting a dam, to be honest. We're going to ponder the COVID cases that have hit the race, unfortunately. I don't think they blighted too much the drama. Certainly hope not. I didn't feel it, but let's ponder those who sadly had to leave too early. Well, they were showing some strong form in this Vuelta. Pavel Sivakov, 9th in the GC, 5th in Alicante time trial. Sam Bennett, winner of 2 stages in the Netherlands, and Simon Yates, 5th in the GC.
The reality is we've been dealing with it for 2 years, so I don't think there's such a shock anymore when it does come out. I think we've got good protocols in place. We try and keep the riders as safe as possible and in their own little bubble, and I think that was a good example of how we can move forward with COVID. Is we don't panic, we don't remove the whole team. It was an isolated case, and we dealt with it efficiently.
Simon Yates had to withdraw from stage 11. His team shifted its focus towards a sprinter, Caden Groves,
we did come
winning
into the race
on the same
with,
day.
High hopes for Simon in the GC, and it isn't easy when you lose someone like that, particularly when he was so well placed and obviously going well. But on the other hand, we did come in with Caden. We knew that we were targeting the sprints with him also, so it wasn't that hard to shift more of a focus towards supporting Caden.
But would Groves have won if Sam Bennett was still in the race? The Irishman already won 2 bunch sprints in the Netherlands, dreaming of a green jersey in Madrid. His team trusted his lead-out man, Danny van Poppel, to keep up the good work.
As a team, you have to move on. You switch over to another rider. try the best, keep the presentation, everything, the work you put in is the same as you have like a 100% chance to win the stage as we would have had with Sam. At the same time, I think it's harder for him. It's like for us, we just keep working. He's at home, recovering, making goals for the end of the season, but at the same time, he's watching the race and he's like, I could have won the stage. I should have won the stage. So that is the hardest part for a rider when he leaves the race.
Another big contender was Hit's 19-year-old Juan Ayuso, but with a low viral load, he was allowed to continue the race. Tonight in Madrid, he'll be climbing onto the 3rd spot on the podium. And what about that man in the Belgian tricolor? Well, Belgians already celebrating, I guess you might say, because of Remco Evenepoel. But it'd be lovely if they could top it off, Sean, with a stage win for Tim Merlier. Tim Merlier, is he here? I believe he is.
Yes, he is very much here on the rear end of affairs. We can see there on the peloton, but he is going to be really up for it and try and get a stage. After pulling himself through all these mountain stages over the last week and the last 2 weeks, well then he is really going to try give it his all here. But you know, how much has he left? Fatigue coming through, you know, the mountain stages for the sprinters. It's always a difficult one, and some suffer big time more than the others. And we all know as well that he wants, you know, to win a stage here because he's won in the Giro, he's won in the Tour, and he wants to make it, you know, a stage win in all 3 week races. So this is an important one for him. But I think that's not what will be on his mind. He just wants to get a stage victory here. Not went as planned, I think, within the team for him, because you know he's been there a number of times, but just getting bumped around, not in the right position at the vital moment, and he'll be hoping to get it perfectly right today.
You know, we often treat breakaway stages as or think of them as something of a rarity, but in this race, breakaways have had so much fun, Sean. They've dominated many of the stages.
Yes, well, the breakaways have been quite a few. I haven't exactly made the count, but there has been quite a number of them that has done really well, meaning going all the way to the finish. And you know, there was a number of times when it looked like that the last number of men and the last man standing from the breakaway was, you know, going to get swallowed up in the end. Yesterday, of course, we see with Carapaz. There was another day as well when Carapaz won on a mountain. Top finish, it looked like he wasn't going to be able to hold on, but just managed to do it, and all out of breakaway. So it's been a good one in this Vuelta for breaks.
Well, the neutralised section went on for quite a bit longer than we thought, because the average speed for the hour what have we done? 12 kilometres. So 12 kilometres an hour. I think we're going a bit faster than that, but not much. It will pick up, and you'll be pleased to know. But and then we'll be, as soon as we get down onto the plain where Madrid is. Do you know what? My geographic knowledge of Madrid is quite sparse. Does it have a river running through it, Sean?
I don't think so. Not a major one.
Yeah, it has the Manzanares River. It goes through it. I'm just looking at the centre of the Iberian Peninsula. But yes, when they founded Madrid, they weren't actually looking for water. Usually that's the main thing that defines it. Prince Philip, or King Philip, I should say, just decided, he got the ruler out and just said, right, that's the middle. That's where we're going to be. And the idea was that you could keep control, or better control. There was no far reaches of the kingdom, let's put it that way. They were all within distance of the armies. Kept up the sleeves. Won't do that again. 83.5 kilometres. We're nearly dead at the dead centre of Spain, and quite warm it's been today, Sean. Nudged up to 35 Celsius, but thankfully just starting to ebb in terms of its temperature, and we haven't had that punishing heat that we're often used to. I was going to say about the breakaways that we haven't seen too much of some of the minor teams because of it, because there's been such a belief in the potential success of the breaks that the likes of Kern Farmer, Euskaltel, Euskadi are, I was going to say Arkea, but I don't really count them in what I'm about to say, and Burgos BH, they didn't really have the chance for us to wax lyrical about some of the minor teams, Sean, because most of the breaks, they had some very strong riders, and quite a few of them went on to win.
Yes, I think in the first two stages we had in the Netherlands, we had some of the smaller teams present, but as the race went on and when it was a big fight to make the breakaway, the wildcard teams had difficulty making the breakaways, and the ones that did make it, that the breakaways were successful, the difficult final just was too much for them against the riders from the big teams that were there in that breakaway. So it was always going to be difficult for those teams to win a stage, but yeah, we did not ever see them really in the final where they were in with a little hope of going all the way to get a stage win.
Well, I'd like to say they were going through the motions at the moment, but that particular man's retired. 82.6 kilometres from home. They're playing with us, Sean, at the moment.
Yes, well, it's nothing new. We see that on the front of the peloton. You get some riders might be catching a plane tonight, so they want to just speed it up a little bit and try and get this stage over with. But yeah, it's not going to happen. And if somebody goes to the front and pushes on a bit, I think they would be followed by the teams, and they get the orders. This is not the norm. We have to just ride quite a number of kilometres further into this stage before we start the racing.
Well, I thought that we were going to have a white helmets display team there. They've just been told to, now that you've got the photo, I'd hurry up if I were you, because you never know what might happen off the front. The party has to end somewhere, Sean, and then we will get a breakaway. And I imagine that we will also have ourselves a sprint finale. It's not absolutely guaranteed. You can get a cheeky one rolling off the front, I don't know, somebody like Rowan Dennis, perhaps. That'd be nice. Well, one notable example of those that were sorely missed. Julian Alaphilippe, Sean. No disrespect to Seri, of course, but it would have been, I guess, an easier task for Remco Evenepoel. Not saying he made it look difficult, but that was a big loss, Julian Alaphilippe, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and there was a major one when Alaphilippe had that crash, and we could see him, he had the shoulder injury and was, taken away by ambulance. We were very concerned about for the future stages, and there was many of them to come for Remco Evenepoel with the loss of Alaphilippe, but they managed really well, and the Quick Step team, Alpha Vinyl, they did really just raise to the occasion, and that is something when a rider as the leader gets into the leader's jersey and he is really performing well, everybody else just raised their level, and that was the case within the Quick Step team. But of course, yeah, losing Peter Seri as well was a big disappointment, because he would have been a one more in the mountains. And for Alaphilippe, of course, himself, coming back after his injury in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he needed this race in view to the World Championships to get the best preparation. This would have been the way to go, although he's still going to the Worlds, we believe.
Yeah.
Now is the question, not continuing on the Vuelta, it could have an effect on his form for the World Championship.
We're going to be hearing from Martin Fernandez in a few moments' time, talking about Juan Ayuso, very much regarded as the future of Spanish cycling. youngster, of course, and were it not for Remco Evenepoel, he would be leading the young riders jersey competition. He does carry the jersey on behalf of Evenepoel, of course. So let's hear from Mathieu Fernandez, shall we? Well, first of all, congratulations for third place of Juan Ayuso. What a surprise for you to see that young rider who's only 19 years of age being on the podium. It must be joyful. Well, it wasn't a surprise. We just didn't know how far he could have gone, but we were convinced that he was going to be at the very top level due to his position and to his fight for the podium. Sincerely, if there would have been anyone telling us, I mean, you know, that it wasn't realistic, then we would have listened. But more than that, he was full of belief, and that's what matters. He has the capacity to go very, very well, and he exceeded all expectations, but did it well. What lessons one learned from the Vuelta Espana, do you think? He was with the favourites, and then gets the podium. Talk us through his journey. Well, every week we learned a new lesson. First week, you don't only suffer when you win, because sometimes you need to suffer in order to go through some bad moments and learn from that. And they seem to be endless, but they go as fast as the good ones, of course. And the difference is that the good ones, while being very nice, seem to last a second. But the bad experiences, they're more important, really, because you have to see how you get through those and handle them. He had a bad time on stage 4 into La Guardia, and he learned how to face the bad times. And what he learned in the first week was huge. And then in the second week, he learned how to go beyond those moments of tension, like he was positive, negative sometimes, and had to fight through that and the COVID tests, whether or not to start. But all the time he maintained his focus in these situations that you can't control. And then during the third week, we learned how to control his feelings. So he has a lot of ambition, and it's been brilliant. And now what then? How will you be protecting him a lot, making him a leader? What's the future for him? Well, he will give one more step, obviously, and it'll be from himself and from the team, but not through pressure. We trust him. There are many riders in the team. It's not just about him, and he has to take responsibility and the pressure. It's all about trust, and I believe in Juan. Like other riders, of course, you have to trust that he will give of his very best. Well, he certainly has, and Juan Ayuso has been one of the revelations of the race. Sean, he has been exceptional.
Yes, he has, and he's a rider that we've been hearing a lot over the past number of years. His huge talent, and not surprising that the team have signed him up, a multi-year contract, and he's proven this year that he is, a rider that will be talked about in the future. And when you come again to a tour, the first time and getting on the podium, this is a big performance from Ayuso, and not surprising that the team have, been talking him up, and the press, of course, in Spain, they have been talking about him a lot, and he's a one which we're going to see, in the days to come, because he's one of the youngest riders in the race. So, a great performance, and of course, COVID as well, it hit him, all of that, it does have an effect mentally, but he got through all of that, and finishes up out a brilliant place in the end.
Shame as well when you think about how close some came. The day that Tessing got tagged in Pional, with Evenepoel coming through for victory, of course, which was a massive day for him, taking his first mountain top finish. But everyone felt for Hessing, didn't they, Sean? Number 4 here on your screen, so close from the breakaway.
Yes, well, of course, he's a rider that I know has been on duty as a domestique for the team for so many years with different riders, and to get into the breakaway and then be the final one standing as such and getting so close to the finish. Unfortunately, again, the GC race started behind on the final mountain, and there was many attacks, and that limited his advantage. And then, of course, we see Matt really pushing on, trying to put Evenepoel in difficulty, and just was that a couple of meters, 50, 100 meters too long for him, not making it to win his stage.
Chris Froome, what will he have gained from this race, Sean? I mean, it's more legs on, more miles in the legs, I guess you might say. I think some of us were hoping for almost a second coming, weren't we, with this one?
Well, he finished the Tour of France well, and we were looking forward to this Vuelta because he needs more racing, because with the injury, being out for so long, it takes, at the stage Chris Froome is in his career, you need longer to get back as well. So more racing, and 3-week racing, of course, is the best one. But COVID, we've heard, it affected him a lot more than he was hoping, I suppose, and that knocked him back a bit. So I think because of that, he hasn't been as performant as we were hoping, and as he was hoping to be.
Working their way through the cars, having dropped back to have some photographs taken. A lot of people that maybe not used to Grand Tour, Sean, or indeed these parade days that we generally have to have, or become very much a feature, a celebration, if you like, of 3 weeks of racing. Many people just tune in for the final day and wonder what on earth's going on.
Yes, well, there is many viewers that talk about that, and we meet so many of them, and they don't really understand why they do that. Why do they do not race the final day? And it's just something that it's a tradition over many years. They have this earlier part where they ride to get onto the finishing circuit here in Madrid, or in the Tour to get onto the Champs-Élysées. And it's the understanding between everybody, the riders, the teams, the race organisers. So, this is, it's not something new. It's going on. I don't know when it really started. I know in my first Tour of France, they raced a bit more before they got onto the Champs-Élysées. But this has been going on for a long, long time.
When was the last steal, Sean, on a day like this, where the a breaker? It wasn't Vinokurov back in the day on the Tour. Have we had one since then? What about the final day in the Giro when Ilio Kaiser, was that on the final day? Or am I just imagining it? Yes. That was gorgeous, wasn't it?
Yes, well, that was on the circuit, of course, and it's something that we haven't seen. When you look at the Champs-Élysées, the stages that's been won out of a breakaway, you have to go back a long time. In the finish here in Madrid as well, I don't remember a stage here in Madrid where there was a breakaway, went away and won the stage from that. It's always been a bunch sprint. So yeah, it is a difficult one, because when you ride in like this, the racing is going to be so fast on the final laps here in Madrid. It's very difficult for a break to get established.
Well, the favourites don't always come through to the fore. Here's Mads Pedersen, of course. Sean Kelly himself, you've probably heard of him. He had a big time trial the day before the final sprint, and he was not very happy about it, to be beaten on the final day. But you put a lot into the time trial and went on to win the entire thing, Sean.
Yes, well, of course, if you have a good sprint on you, which I had, and when you get to the end of a 3-week race as well, the fatigue as well for maybe the better sprinters than yourself. You're always hoping that you can get a win, and I did try 88 when I won the Vuelta. I tried in the sprint, but after the time trial the previous day, the effects of that were still in the legs. But it was always going to be a difficult one, because there was maybe 2 or 3 riders there that were that little bit faster than me in a normal situation, and there were a number of them on that day that bit stronger, bit faster.
Well, we will be heading into Madrid. As I'm sure you can tell, we are working our way through the outskirts at the moment. The first passage of the start-finish line, and I call it that because we've got plenty of laps to take. We will cross it for the first time with 52.2 kilometres to go, and we'll have 9 laps. Plenty of time, Sean, for them to dial it into the psych, but the very nature of this 3-legged star, it's quite a conundrum really, because it has a different character, a different complexion, depending on the speed with which you take all of the corners. And of course, there are plenty of those, with 3 hairpins at the far reaches of the legs of the star. And then, of course, 3 90-degree turns, well, 2 90-degree turns, actually. One's a bit more benign, at the centre. It kind of... it's quite beguiling just taking it on and indeed working out where you are, because it's constantly you're constantly taking turns, sprinting out of corners and then taking another very, very focused turn.
Yeah, it is a technical one, and on a circuit race at the end of a 3-week tour, it can be difficult for a lot of the riders that are really fatigued. But the sprinters, they can handle this quite well. It's maybe not the perfect run for the fast men, but you have to get on with it. And most of the sprinters, their bike handling is good. The team will be around them and just keep them into position in the earlier laps, out of danger, not too far back, because the further you're back in the peloton on this sort of finishing circuit, it makes it more difficult. So stay up in that 30-40 places, and then when you get to the final number of kilometres, position is going to be important. And the final corner, just before the kilometre to go, that is going to be of major importance. But again, the roads are pretty wide, and the sprinters are, that quality of bike ride, that this sort of a circuit, should not be a problem for them, for their positions. It's all about, the final run to the line, when you get inside that final kilometre, the final corner, just to hold your position and have a teammates around you. As we heard from Matt Pedersen, if he has his lead-out man in front of him in the right place, take him to the right position where he needs to kick off his sprint. That's what you're all hoping for as a sprinter in a team. But unfortunately, it doesn't work for all.
No, it doesn't. And I'm actually just beginning to wonder whether we mightn't just have a surprise today. It would be a real treat. Honestly, I think it'd be a surprise if Tim Malia wins. There you are, I've said it. Who's your pick, Adam? Welcome to Adam Blythe, who joins us. Sent me a note saying, no rush.
There's no rush, Carlton. Take your time. Bring me in when you need to. I'm just off to make risotto, so I'll be back in about half an hour.
Yeah, no, depends what your rice you're using.
Risotto rice, naturally.
Well, there are plenty. Arborio, Arabaccio. Come on, there's probably 30 more that I could reel off.
Arboria's my favourite.
It's the one I've just mentioned.
Oh.
73.7 kilometres from home. Well, it's hardly sinew testing at the moment, Adam, but I guess we'll give them that gift.
We are. I was just watching downstairs with the Breakaway crew, Orla and Dan, and we were chatting about the riders that have gone off the front and then came back, which was Rowan Dennis, and we were discussing how amazing it'd be in those slow, starting kilometres if he just went hell for leather, surprised everyone, got 10 minutes. By the time he got onto the circuit, I don't know what they'd have done, because he'd have probably been a lap up by that time. And then we start quick step out the back, having that photo taken. Imagine if Movistar thought, then actually, sack this, we're still racing here, let's put the hammer down now and drop him. I mean, they'd get in a lot of trouble from the teams, but it'd be brilliant to see for us.
Would you dare to do it?
Well, don't be silly, Sean. I wouldn't have the legs to do it.
And the organisers, did you notice that they roundly ignored him? So much so, I actually didn't believe it, so I was kind of waiting to see if we would hook up to him. But we've got a picture of Rowan Dennis. He looks slightly grumpy. Nothing wrong with that. But yes, came to naught. This is the Palacio Infante Don Luis. Good old Don Luis. Donald Lewis, as he was known in the local bars here. Ministry of Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda, apparently, co-finances the actions of restoration. That's the driest description of such a beautiful place. Tell me about the top topiary. I don't know, anything. That would be great. Ministry of Transport and Mobility. Let's have Richard Carapaz. What a man, and what an absolutely spectacular series of stage wins. Stage 12 went his way. That was cathartic. Then, 2 stages later, he only went and did it again. Well, if that was cathartic, this was joyful. Check that out. Thank you very much. And then, of course, there was another. The penultimate stage, probably the bravest of them all. And this one, I think, was dealt with just relief and joy. Kapow. That was wonderful. Gets himself a polka dot jersey, 3 stage wins, and after a tough start to this race, I think he'll take that. What a Vuelta for Richard Carapaz. Even he was quickly out of the discussions regarding the general classification. The Ecuadorian rider managed and saved his 3 weeks by winning 3 stages, each time during a mountain stage, and each time finishing alone. Already a winner of 3 Giro stages. He now has 3 on the Vuelta. He also managed to help his young teammate Carlos Rodriguez, who became the new leader of Team Ineos Grenadiers, 7th in the end. And of course, Carapaz remained in that jersey, was never going to get taken from him, and wonderfully so. A shame that Jay Vine, though, Adam, was not there to duke it out with him.
It was indeed, and I'm sure Jay Vine, out of all of us, will be more gutted than we can ever imagine, really. He did a fantastic ride, 2 stage wins, obviously, in that jersey, protecting it amazingly. And yeah, just, it's bike racing, isn't it? We say it so often when we see crashes, but it is a part of it. And it's something the riders have to deal with. It's just sad the position that Jay Vine was in. He had to deal with it in that way. But they have finally picked up the pace a little bit now, Colin. And I think even the king next to me might be able to keep up with this pace.
Well,
I think
sure would.
Even I could, possibly.
well, this is the pace that I'd like, and next week I'm actually doing an event, the Sean Kelly 3 counties and aid of Down syndrome. So next Sunday, the 18th September, I'll be on the road and riding about this pace.
Here's Richard Carapaz.
Richard, no lo ve la cámara, pero llevas zapatillas doradas, maillot de la montaña de la Vuelta. Podemos
Well,
decir
Richard,
que ha sido un buen año,
can't see the camera,
para
but
ti,
you have some golden shoes. King of the Mountains jersey. What can you say about the great job that you've done? Well, it's a great season for me, being second in the Giro d'Italia, nothing bad, and then finishing on La Vuelta with 3 stage wins, and being the leader of the mountains classification. It feels amazing to me, to be honest. We had some nice victories on the Vuelta in order to say goodbye to the team, and I must admit, we're parting company as great friends. I'm very happy. Well, you came here with the role of leader, and then you adapted to a stage winner, and then you had this jersey, and when it's not your main goal, how did these 3 weeks really pan out for you? Well, at the start, the goal was, of course, fighting for winning La Vuelta, but then many circumstances changed, and we had to reset, and we knew that we couldn't take part in the fight, and we knew that tough days were coming. And after finishing the Asturias, we knew that the rest day was coming as well. And little by little, I was having better sensations. And then the first victory came, and I found out that I could try something. And well, we talked about it in the team to go off in the GC standings and fight for stage victories instead. It was a good decision by the team, and we had 3 nice stage wins, and were very spectacular. And I got the King of the Mountains jersey.
Un buen reinvento con el equipo y mira, hemos conseguido 3 bonitas victorias, han sido espectaculares y aún más pues con el maillot de la montaña, ¿no?
Well, sometimes your team can expect that you have a certain level of performance, but it wasn't your case, at least early on. But it's been a great Vuelta for you. And the team. Well, I came here eager to fight, always showing the professionality which is what matters with the team. From the first year I was in the team, I was on the podium in 2020. So to say goodbye this way shows that we've always been ready. Even if we have to reinvent ourselves, we're always ready for a fight. And we offer up our congratulations. Thank you very much, he says, on receipt of those. He did a great job, Adam, of pulling it out of the fire almost, didn't he?
He did an amazing job. Just the way that he rode through that Vuelta and the way that he approaches stages, he's a all or nothing kind of guy. And I was a little bit sad at first when we saw him drop out. Well, he didn't have the legs at the start, but once we got to saw the real sort of Richard Carapaz race, the one that races on heart, he's not a numbers man, he's very tactically aware. And yesterday was a great example of that, attacking just before the top of that last climb, going solo. He knew he had to do that to get that stage win. And he's just been a joy to watch in these stages. I've loved watching Carapaz.
Me too. In fact, there's been so much to take out of it. There's Louis Meintjes just disappearing out of your screen. EF Education got the victory with, of course, Rigoberto Urán. And it's just a shame, Sean, that we didn't have Sam Bennett here to just light up the sprint battle with Mads Pedersen, who's likely to win today.
Well, I don't know if Mads Pedersen will win again today, because he's going to have a little bit more opposition, because the fast men will be in the sprint here. But yeah, Sam Bennett will be majorly disappointed, because he got back into that super shape in the earlier part of this race, and then of course Covert wiped out his chances of going on. And Sam Bennett is the one that needs a 3-week tour as well. He's in the situation like we talked about Chris Froome. You need those racing days, 3 weeks of racing, and yeah, it's a big disappointment. And I'm sure he was sitting at home watching these days when it was for the sprinters and saying, well, if I was there, I could have possibly got another stage win.
Sean, you know how tough this game can be. You won La Vuelta, of course. Was it, when you looked at it this year and you looked at the parcours, did you think, well, it's not as tough as in my day? Go on, be honest.
No, I don't think, when you look back in the mid-80s, late 80s, the parcours or the route for the big tours, weren't as challenging as they have been in the last 10 plus years. The organisers seem to find a lot of these climbs in the end, and it's a more difficult Vuelta, certainly. This year's route, when you look at all the mountaintop finishes we've had in this one, they are more difficult. And yeah, it's a case for all the races, all the organisers, the 3-week races, but the week-long race as well. They seem to be putting in more of these hilltop finishes, 2 or 3 kilometres at the end of a lot of stages. So that makes it more difficult for the GC riders, because you have to be more present in those stages in the end, and that stress, through a week-long race or through a 3-week race, it makes it more difficult on the GC men.
Well, it's good of you to say it, because I mean, some of the length of the stages that we used to have of over 300 kilometres to cut across some of the very hot desert open spaces, I just thought it was inhuman. And it was the redesign, really, of La Vuelta that kind of set the template for the Giro changes that have happened under Accaroni, and even the Tour itself, just compressing it, shortening the distances they have to deal with, and making it for a very punchy affair, Sean. And we've certainly had that, haven't we, in this race?
Yes, well, I think the shortening of distance, especially in the Vuelta for a long number of years now, it's made the race, more aggressive in the earlier parts, and yeah, it is, good for TV. When you talk about, Carlton, the big tours, back in the mid-80s, there were some of the stages close to 300 kilometres. But of course, you rode along for maybe 120 or 30 kilometres at a pace like we're doing here today. So it served, it served no purpose for the race at all. It was fatigue, of course, building up over the 3 weeks. But, the shorter stages are the best way to go.
I think so. With all these mountain top finishes that we've had this year as well, Adam, there have been a couple of days where we've felt it's had the same character, at least on paper, but they've all been ridden differently, haven't they?
They will all be ridden differently now as well. I think the gradients obviously are very important. That changes the way that people attack them, ride them. But it's just, I think racing's changed a lot recently in the last couple of years. The younger riders coming through, the level that they're at now. I think most of the riders now for the cycling geeks, it is around 6.5 watts per kilo that these guys are doing on the climb, like the top guys, and that is an enormous number. And if you can't compete with that, you've just got no chance whatsoever. So it's, bike racing's just changed.
Just over 66 kilometres to go. A short while, Sean Kelly is going to take himself off, and well, he'll be having a little bit of tapas as it's early evening. He'll be saving himself for later. Sean, you'll be back for the feast as a finale today. Shadows getting longer.
Do you not want to stay, Sean?
Yes, well, the shadows are getting longer, and yeah, I'll be back for the final here, but I'll definitely take my rest, because I think it was quite a number of kilometres more at this pace, so I'll be back for the real exciting stuff, the laps around Madrid.
In about 3 hours then, at this rate.
Yeah. Well, in a short while we'll be welcoming Robbie McEwen into the commentary position. It's been a joy to have Robbie on board with us for the Grand Tours this year. And out of this race, Robbie, what's been your big takeaway in terms of the drama that has been presented to us? Oh, we'll hear from Robbie a little bit later then. there is no rush, as we say, Adam. Remco Evenepoel, full of tears yesterday. Nice to see him smiling today. It must have finally dawned on him.
Yes, it is probably finally dawned on him that he's woke up this morning as the winner of the Vuelta, and I can't imagine the amount of messages, support he's had over his phone. We all have a telephone. We know what it's like when you get a couple of messages on a WhatsApp group. I'm sure he's had quite a lot of them to keep up with and not being able to get through them. So I'm sure he'd be feeling quite overwhelmed as well, really.
What's Tim Merlier's? Does it add pressure to his shoulders that, of course, Belgium is absolutely in party mood? He needs something out of this race. He was third behind Sam Bennett in Utrecht, and then it became a little bit anonymous. Well, very anonymous. Do you think that's part of the burden of moving teams? Is there any lack of motivation there? Surely he'll be up for it today after coming this far.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be going for today. He's not had the best Vuelta, and it's the only Grand Tour that he's gone into and not won a stage yet. So I'm sure that he'll be hungry for it today. And with these paces, short stage, it will suit him a little bit more, I think. It's just he's going up against a very, very fast Mads Pedersen, Danny Van Poppel as well. And it's a last chance for the riders who have not won stages, like Van Poppel as well, to get a stage win. So it's going to be entertaining, but yeah, it would be good to see, wouldn't it? Belgium winner of the Vuelta and a Belgian winner on the last day of the Vuelta. It would be National Belgium Day.
Well, it would be, but he's got a task on his hands. He was beaten by Bennett and Pedersen in Utrecht. He was beaten by Benetton, Pedersen, Maclay, Cockard, Leinard in Breda, and he was beaten by Groves and Van Poppel in Cabo de Gata. He was beaten by Pedersen, Ackermann, Van Poppel, Wright, Pasha, Battistella, Bellens, Russo. I could go on. He's not been there, and you cannot be absent so that often if there's not something amiss. And he needs to put it all back together today, because he's come all the way through this race, and it's now or never.
It is now or never, Carlton. He got through this race as well today, looking for next year as well. Let's not forget he's going to Quick Step next year. He'll be alongside Remco himself. So it's going to be, it is now or never for him, yeah, but this is the big picture for him as well, moving on into next year with a good race in his legs and getting stronger, hopefully. I think this is a stepping stone for Merlier, is finishing this Grand Tour and then looking into the future. So he's got through this, give him a bit more confidence maybe in going into the next Grand Tours, because I can't imagine Patrick Lefevre will be happy with him just doing 6 stages and then dropping out.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Well, and we know about Lefebvre's temper as well, and his patience, particularly with quick men, it seems. So we'll see. Alejandro Valverde retiring today. We saw him, of course, sharing felicitations, as it was, with Vincenzo Nibali. I'm going to miss Valverde. And Vincenzo, of course. 12 stage victories at La Vuelta and a final victory in 2009. 4 stage wins at the Tour de France. 1 World Championship title, 4 Liège-Bastogne-Liège, 5 Flèche-Wallonne, 2 Classic San Sebastian, amongst other victories. That's the palmarès of Alejandro Valverde, who was riding his last Grand Tour.
The squad is going to be missing a big personality, a big champion. Valverde, right now, I mean, he's a role model for a lot of, especially the older guys in the peloton. Seeing that he's racing the way he is at the age of 42, still winning races, still at the front. I think it's really an example for a lot of riders, and I think he can be very happy with the career he's had.
He certainly will be missed enormously within Spain. They were kind of hanging on to him, waiting for the youngsters to come through. They are now here. Thank heaven for that. Well, we'd like to keep him going, to be honest, because he can tell us a lot of things. He's enjoying his riding his bike a lot. He has strength, of course, to keep hanging on. For sure, he came to a point where he needs to disconnect a little bit. Alejandro and I used to do many things together. We started very young. We were rivals, of course, in the beginning, and then became teammates for 4 years. And I was his gregario. I was the last rider to be with him. And for my last years, he was the toughest rival I had, so we were not only fighting for Grand Tours but also for classic races. That was Perito Rodriguez, of course. And what about Alberto Contador? He must have a message for his compatriot as he takes a bow. I'm ready to receive you into a new life, Alejandro. He says, of course, we'll be different. We'll have to keep on cycling, and for sure the ones that will be suffering will in the Gruppetto will be a great effort to follow you. It'll be different, I'm sure, but you're going to be doing that great too. Well, we'll see what Alejandro Valverde ends up doing. I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going to get something to eat. And I hand you over to Dan Lloyd and Robin McEwen, along with, of course, Adam Blythe.
Thank you very much, Carlton. Don't be too long, because they're going to speed up now and start racing.
Thanks for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Cheers. But being serious, they should start speeding up very shortly indeed. It will be the Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl team who are given the privilege of taking the lead of this race, Remco Evenepoel, into the streets of Madrid and through the start-finish point for the first time. And we actually aren't not too far away from that point now. It comes at 52.2 kilometres to go, so in just under 10 kilometres time. And there is actually a sprint with a bonus point there at 46.4 kilometres to go. So the second passage of the finish line, Adam. There's a 1 second gap between Carlos Rodriguez and Thymen Arensman.
That'll be an interesting sprint, watching those two duke it out. If they do decide to go for it, be nice to see Rodriguez have a go after what he's been through. Big crash a couple of days ago, but yeah, I'd love to see that sprint from GC riders, not sprinters. To the line, it's always entertaining.
Well, we've been speculating about what entertainment we might have had today, because Rowan Dennis, as Adam was mentioning earlier, was off the front briefly on his own, and he was just the type of character that we thought might think, well, stuff this, I know what the tradition is, but I am going to crack on and see if you can catch me. There was also a moment, Robbie, where Adam and I spotted that Evenepoel and his teammates were off the back of the main peloton to have their photos, as opposed to the front, like you see at the Tour de France. And Adam was saying, do you think Movistar and Enric Mas are a little bit tempted to go flat out at this point?
No, but it's a good joke. I mean, it's the type of day and the type of stage where you would see someone then, you know, or the whole team go and then look back laughing their heads off.
It'd be good if they just went past that point of a joke, though, wouldn't it? And they just did it for like 5k, just 5k, and then turn around and went, wee.
Yeah, and then the guys who panic and chase them, they start laughing. No, you didn't really have us. We're joking too.
Yeah, exactly.
But not really. But I hope Dan's right with the call that they're going to speed up soon, because somewhat selfishly, I'd like them to speed up because it's already 2:45 in the morning here.
I was about to ask you how the jet lag's going.
The sooner the better. Well, even by my standards that I've set over the last 3 weeks, this is a late one.
Unfortunately, they're always quite slow with the podium ceremonies at the Vuelta as well, Robbie. So
yeah, I can't wait for that.
It won't be long till you can have your breakfast.
I'm saving my best stuff for exactly that, for over breakfast. I hope the audience doesn't mind a bit of crunching of cornflakes as the jerseys are being presented. I'm already falling asleep. Here we go.
Well, you can be quite content in the knowledge that all of us over here in Europe, we're getting over to your time zone very shortly indeed, because this time next week, the 8 days of the UCI Road World Championships will kick off with the elite men's and women's time trials on day 1. Day 8 is the men's elite road race. Day 7 is the elite women's road race, and all the other age categories in both the time trial and road race discipline, plus the mixed relay, will take place between those 2 Sundays.
Yep, so strap yourselves in, folks, because for the UK, there's a 9-hour time difference. Which is actually not too bad. You can actually watch it over breakfast.
Yeah, you can catch the end of it. If you want to catch the start and the middle, it will be through the middle of the night if you're in the UK or the rest of Europe. But yes, we hope that you will join us if you are able for our coverage, which will be live from start to finish of all the major races in Australia next week, starting on Sunday. We will have the breakaway for the women's and men's road races on the final Saturday and Sunday, but just a post-race show due to the time difference, as opposed to the pre-race show as well.
Oh, come on, Dan.
I actually can't make it anyway. I can't make it anyway because my colleague and fellow GCN presenter Tom Last is getting married that weekend. But I will be watching. So as you can see, we are now getting in towards the centre of Madrid. Unlike what I said yesterday, it hasn't been here for as long as I can remember. In fact, last year we weren't in Madrid at all. It was Santiago de Compostela with an individual time trial, which was then won by Primoz Roglic, who sealed the deal on his 3rd straight Vuelta victory on the general classification. But before that, it had finished in Madrid for a number of years.
Just a quick one on that temple we just saw, the Temple of Debod, and that's an ancient Egyptian temple that was dismantled and rebuilt in the centre of Madrid. Interesting little fun fact for those taking a tour of Madrid, either this afternoon where you are, or really early in the morning where I am.
It's almost evening here. It's evening over in Madrid, but where we are in the UK, it's 10 to 6 local time. Yeah, they have a traditional late finish now, as they do with the Tour de France. It used to finish at around the same time as a normal stage at about 5 p.m, but I guess they've moved it later so that the TV can go a bit later into the evening for the final day of those 2 Grand Tours. I think with the Tour de France it was 2014 or 15, I believe, when they first made it an evening finish as opposed to late afternoon. Not sure when that happened at La Vuelta a Espana. Given the speed they've been going today, though, even if they'd scheduled it for late afternoon, it probably would have been an evening finish. Feels even slower than a normal procession.
I remember coming into this stage a few years ago, and I was telling everyone on the breakaway, well, everyone, the 2 people in the room that I was talking to, Dan and Orla, but it was when Chris Froome was trying to get his hands on the green jersey still. And Alberto Contador, it was his last race, so he came in like a rocket, so he had to ride off the front. And then we carried on riding at a ridiculous speed the whole way through it. It was awful.
The one Vuelta I rode to the finish, I went flat out from start to finish on the final day.
How come?
It was a time trial.
Oh.
I didn't want to get eliminated on the last day. But in fact, I've told you this one before. I mean, you've heard it, but anyway, I'll say it again because it is a long afternoon when they're going at this speed. That was the year in 2001 that I won the Vuelta by virtue of being the first one to finish it.
There you go, exactly, Robert.
Oh, you were Lanterne Rouge, were you?
Yes. 139th at 3 hours and 19 minutes. I just looked it up before. I think there's 134 finishes in this one, with the Lanterne Rouge some more than 5 hours behind Remco Evenepoel.
Oh, wow. Is that still Davide Cimolai?
I'll have to check that one for you. It is Davide Cimolai, 5:31.37, 5.5 hours. That's a complete stage behind. It's not bad going, actually, only one stage behind.
If you've been away on a commercial break, we've just been talking about the Lanterne Rouge of this race. It is the Italian Davide Cimolai of Team Cofidis, who started today at a deficit to Remco Evenepoel of 5 hours, 31 minutes and 37 seconds. And in fact, there are 9 riders who are over 5 hours down in the overall classification. We've also been discussing this procession for the last day of this race, as it is, of course, for the Tour de France on the way into Paris. I think I mentioned on the breakaway that next year that might not be the case, but I've got my factor on, as ever. It's 2024 when the finish could look quite different to the Tour de France. I think that is because of the Olympic Games taking place in Paris. So rumours are that the end of the Tour de France 2024 will finish down in Nice. And you wonder what sort of stage they might have with that change of venue. Wouldn't it be nice to have a hilly stage on the last day?
Imagine if they had a hilly time trial at Col d'Ez, like they did in Paris-Nice.
Yeah, you could do it like that, or like Paris-Nice used to finish with, a fairly flattish stage that finished with laps of the Promenade des Anglais and a big bunch sprint. So kind of like in Paris, but the southern end of the country.
Well, Robbie, I have to tell you that in 2017, when I did the Vuelta, I was 4th from last and 4 hours and 58 minutes down. I did a full stage. The last on that race was my teammate at the time, a fellow presenter here at GCN, Connor Dunn, 5 hours 16 minutes down.
Who is currently about 1 metre away from us, isn't he, in the next door commentary box on the Grand Prix Montreal, which you can catch right now or later on after today's stage of La Vuelta. Well, look at Mads Pedersen, who starts at La Vuelta was a frustrating one with 3 second places in those stages in Utrecht, in Breda and La Guardia. The Dane had settled for second places there, but coming in stage 13, as Sam Bennett was out of the race due to COVID, his confidence was pretty high.
Everyone is sitting together. Like, today it's really important, boys. I know I can win this final. No one is better than me on a final like this. So if you deliver me perfect and you do your job 100%, I promise you a win.
And Mads Pedersen kept that promise with winning in Montier with a fine margin, and he could offer some champagne to share around with his teammates. And the Danish rider did not rest on his laurels after that initial stage victory. He went on to win 2 other stages of this race, in Tamales and Talavera de la Reina. Maybe he'll get one more today in the finale in Madrid. However, what we do know already is that he smashed the green jersey classification and is the deserved winner of the best sprinter of this Vuelta. It's been an incredible race and an incredible season for Mads Pedersen. I think today is his 82nd day of racing in 2022, and thus far he's got 9 wins to his name. Could it be a 10th today, Robbie? What do you reckon?
It's a very good chance. I mean, he's going in, and he's got to go into this stage as the favourite based on what he's done throughout this race and the form that he's carried across the entire 3 weeks, where others have had good and some really ordinary days. He's been consistently excellent. Even though the beginning on those flat stages, he ran second 3 times, or he ran second once, so one of them behind Primož Roglič on a stiff uphill finish. But yeah, he's been just so good throughout this Vuelta. That we often see that the final stage and the final sprint comes down to not always who's the fastest in normal bunch sprints in races throughout the season, but just who's got the most juice left in the legs. And Mads Pedersen has had plenty of it. Green juice.
Well, as you can see, we are entering the laps. They'll cross the finish line for the first time with 52.2 kilometres remaining. And Alejandro Valverde is being allowed his moment of glory at the front of the race. Home crowds out in force. This is his 32nd Grand Tour, and it looks as if he's on the verge of finishing his 27th. It's been a very long career. We might not have seen the best of him at this race, but this is not the last race of his career. It's just the final Grand Tour. He will carry on trying to pick up as many points as possible in the UCI rankings for Team Movistar, and his final race as a professional rider will be at Il Lombardia in a few weeks' time in Italy.
He's got a heck of a gap as well. If he keeps going here, he might be for the stage win.
Well, GC's not over yet.
Exactly. Come on, Alejandro, give us what we want. Keep going, attack.
Well, that's got to be a goosebumps moment for him. How long were you professional for, Robbie?
16 and a half years, because I retired after the Tour of California in 2012. So, yeah, 16 and a half.
At 42 years of age now, Alejandro Valverde, I think I'm right in saying that he's probably been a professional cyclist longer than he hasn't. That makes sense, because I think he turned professional fairly early on in his career. I think it's his 20th year as a pro rider, so I might be slightly wrong on that. But nevertheless, a huge part of his life thus far has been spent as a professional cyclist in the pro peloton. So I'm sure it's going to be quite the change for him when he finishes his career at the end of this season. Last I heard, he was going to continue on with his Team Movistar as a coach. But even if you stay within the sport, Adam, it's quite a big change to your life, isn't it?
It will be, and you can often, I think for Valverde, if he's on there as a coach, being at the races, absolutely brilliant, because you get to live and breathe it. But when you're at home, that time for him, I think, will be concentrated on coaching riders, looking after riders. So all of a sudden, all that time that you think you've got, it suddenly disappears out the window. But I'm sure he will take quite a bit of time off and relax, enjoy the family. And he'll probably still go out on his bike and smash everyone as well still.
I was going to say exactly that. He strikes me as the type of character that will continue to ride his bike pretty much forevermore. Same vein as our own Sean Kelly. Oh, you do a fair bit of riding still, Robbie, as well, don't you?
Well, fair bit. I do a bit. 2 or 3 times a week I go and ride 60k. So, 120 to 180 a week normally. Sometimes it's only 100 a week, but enough to just keep the legs going in circles. I agree. I think Alejandro Valverde, he's formed such a habit over his 21 seasons as a professional, which is then half of his life, being 42 years old. It's not something you'll just be able to racket, I don't think. Some do, but I just don't think Alejandro Valverde is that type. I think he'll be going out for a ride almost straight after his season finishes, just to catch up with his mates and have a nice fun ride and just, chat and enjoy the outdoors.
Well, he's not hanging about, is he? We haven't got an official time gap on our screen between Alejandro Valverde and the main bunch behind as things stand. But that main bunch is being led across the line there by Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl. On behalf of Remco Evenepoel, as is their right on this processional final stage. Up to this point, of course, we will get a proper race very shortly indeed. He seems to have knocked it off slightly here behind Alejandro Valverde on front, shall I say.
Yeah, we often see it in the Tour de France, don't we? In the past, we've seen riders at the end of their career or their last tour, their last Grand Tour, they get the opportunity to go across the line in front, but it's over the finish line and then really quickly the race starts. They're reeled back in and the first attacks go straight away on the incline up towards the Arc de Triomphe. It looks like Alejandro Valverde's being permitted to ride the entire lap as a celebration before anybody dares to go out and make a race of it.
I think Vincenzo Nibali should have attacked and pipped him to the post as he came across the line. Here we go then, celebrations for Alejandro Valverde. This, of course, is not a stage victory, but a celebration of his own career as a pro cyclist. Tarnished in part in the middle part of his career, but it's been a lengthy one. Robbie McEwen pointing out he spent 21 years as a pro cyclist, 42 years of age, so exactly half his life.
Dan, I suppose Alejandro can get the photo taken right now and do it a bit like your chess career.
Yes.
And just, you know, claim this as a victory.
Your chess career. Oh, brilliant.
That might be lost on a few of you listening out there. It was another conversation at a quieter moment of the race, about midway through this Vuelta Espana.
Well, it's a bit of a quiet moment. Dan was quite the chess master in his younger days, but there was not much evidence of it. It went back to a conversation about riders putting their hands in the air to celebrate victory when they hadn't actually won. And I did it twice. Once for third place. Carlton, after hearing about Dan's chess exploits, was trying to find something relating to Dan and chess. Couldn't find a thing, and Dan then mentioned that there was a nice photo of him standing next to a chessboard with his hands in the air, which proved his expertise. Or did you get second?
I had the odd win. I don't remember where I finished overall in that particular tournament. As here they are then bringing it home, and it's great to see that it's Remy Cavagna, Adam, that's being allowed to sit on the front of the team, as he has for kilometre after kilometre of this year's race, ever since the point when Remco Evenepoel went into the red jersey. Without him, winning this race would have been a lot harder.
Yes, it would. We saw COVID, and I'm sure within that team they're probably looking, saying if there's one rider we don't want to get COVID here, apart from Remco, it's Remy Cavagna, because no one else in that team, I don't think, could do what he did. Amazing.
So we're off on the first of 9 laps of this finishing circuit around the capital of Spain in Madrid. 5.6 kilometres per circuit, so as you can see. We're now getting into the final 50 kilometres of the race, and there we've got a time gap. 1 minute and 15 seconds Alejandro Valverde has over the main peloton behind, but he's sat up, just taking in all the applause of the crowd.
That would have been great if he just waved across the road to the peloton. Just, hi guys, and bye, I'm going to attack now. Just a bit of a ledge, isn't he?
Right, when will the first proper attack come then? I think back to a few years ago on the final stage of the Giro d'Italia. Ilio Kaiser, riding for Quick-Step at the time, as he still does, did manage to get the better of the sprinters and their teams behind. He was with one other rider whose name escapes me as things stand. Luke Durbridge, was it? Yeah. They went on the attack on the final finishing circuits, and the bunch miscalculated things, and they managed to stay away to the end. Here we go then. It's one of the riders from Burgos BH who decided to make the first attack. He's trying to bridge his way up across to Alejandro Valverde, and as such...
Mas is going on the attack. The GC is not over. Enrique Mas is going off the front.
Well, of course, Movistar are going to mark this move with their teammate up the road. They won't do any work before they catch Alejandro Valverde. It's a circuit you've done before, I believe, Adam. Talk us through it.
It is. A couple of tight hairpins. The one they're heading up to now is probably the tightest one. Small road, well, narrow road. Back on yourself, a right, and then all the way down to the opposite side of the finish line. Hairpin back up. But it's just these little parts here where the peloton really does string out, and just these little niggles that go uphill ever so slightly. After 21 days on the bike, it does just ache the legs a little bit.
Well, that's bizarre. His teammates are chasing him down now. So Movistar on the front. You can see Alpecin de Koning up there at the front as well. They will be working for the Belgian national champion Tim Merlier on today's stage. It's the final opportunity for everybody, of course, but also for Tim Merlier, who's failed to get himself off the mark at this year's Vuelta a España.
Valverde's bringing ball back now. Just see him on the left-hand side there. Yetzibol. I think he was in the first attack on the first road stage in this race.
He was.
And on the last road stage in this Vuelta, he's yet again on the attack. Consistent.
Let's try to work out why Movistar are riding on the front. It's not as though they have a sprinter amongst their ranks here. Enric Mas, of course, finishing this race in second place on the general classification. 2 minutes and 5 seconds down. But I think him and his team can be very proud of what they've achieved over the last 3 weeks of La Vuelta. Certainly coming into it, and based on what we'd seen this year, we weren't expecting it. Well, we've had a couple of riders attempting to go clear, but Movistar seem absolutely determined that not a single rider is going to get in the breakaway today. Can't quite get my head around exactly why they want it to be like that, because it's the sprinters team that we expected to take full charge of this race and set things up for one final sprint finish at the Vuelta a España.
These riders here are not going to be enjoying this. They came out that hairpin. You saw them stopping before they went in. The sprint now that they've got to make to get back on it is just awful. You can't see the front. You don't know when it's going to stop, but you just pray. It's like, what is going on here? What's happening?
Yeah, as slow and ceremonial as this has been, it is completely the opposite now. Now that they've wound things up. And I just saw Chris Harper there, the Australian from Jumbo-Visma, riding at the back. He'd gone from really cruising at about 25 kilometres an hour to turning himself inside out at about 60, just trying to stay with the peloton as they came out of one of those hairpins. It's a horrible place to put yourself at the back when this starts. And as you said, Adam, it's a tricky circuit with a couple of hairpin, well, three real turns back on yourself. And, yeah, not the place to be down the back if you're looking for an easy ride.
A shock to the system, I think you could say it is, when you've been cruising along at about 20 kilometres per hour, as they were for the first, what seemed like 5 hours of today's stage, but I think it was only a couple from when they started to when they started racing properly. So one of the riders off the front then, from Equipa Kern Pharma, who lost 3 of their riders in a single day midway through this race due to COVID positive tests. All the other 5 have managed to get through to the finish here in Madrid. Most hobbled teams, really, have been Intermarché, Wanty Gobert and Lotto Soudal, who finished with just 3 riders apiece. And as we were saying earlier in our commentary, lonely old times on the team buses and at dinner in the hotels for those 2 teams at this race.
We are not far away from the sprint point. We've come through this lap. We'll do one more lap, and then it'll be down to that bonus seconds point. Will Rodriguez go for it? Will Arensman try and sprint for it as well?
Well, I think Arensman will be wary. I don't think he'll expect anything to actually happen, but you just never know. And Carlos Rodriguez, of course, not a sprinter at the best of times, but not least, or even worse, you would imagine, with all of the scars and the bruises from his crash. I'm not expecting him to... Oh, just as I say that, here we go. Teo Gegenhardt with Richard Carapaz on his wheel, and just behind that, it's Carlos Rodriguez, the Spanish champion. Reason for this is that just 1 second separated Carlos Rodriguez from Thymen Arensman of Team DSM on the general classification this morning. But unfortunately, he's been dropped from the lead-outs. So Richard Carapaz coming through here. Here we go. He's
done it so tough.
Carlos Rodriguez is going to do his best to try and take the remaining bonus seconds. I almost feel like Enric Mas was trying to help his compatriot towards the line there. DSM coming up towards the front with a couple of their riders, and it looks like it's going to be disappointment for Carlos Rodriguez. 5th across the line, so he didn't pick up a bonus second. So he will remain in 7th place on GC. unless he manages to win the sprint or come second or third at the finish.
Well, I like the fact that he tried.
That was great.
Yes. As battered and bruised as he is, and then, you know, just really struggling through the last part of this Vuelta after his crash, I can really appreciate the effort that he made to try and get it. Mas, on the other hand, I'm not quite sure why he would have.
No, I don't. But do you know what's funny about that is that just at the back of that little group that split was Remco still, just making sure he's not actually going anywhere. I'm still here. I'm still here.
Well, we've got our first proper attack. This is Julius Johansson at the Intermarché Wanty-Gobert, and behind him, Robbie, the Australian champion Luke Platt. We've not seen too much of him at this race, but we can presume he's been doing a lot of early work for Carlos Rodriguez.
He has. He's been doing a lot of early work, keeping him out of the wind all day long as well. So, you know, doing all the odd jobs in the bunch, the jobs of the unsung heroes of the teams. They don't often get in the picture. We don't get to commentate much on what they're doing because it tends to happen sort of within the peloton and when the camera's not pointed at them. But Luke Platt, a lot like you mentioned Luke Durbridge just before when he went away on the last day of the Giro with Ilio Kerr. So he's a man who could pull this sort of thing off. He's a really good time trialist. He's been the Australian champion and he's the Australian road champion. It's unlikely, but if they do let them go and give them a gap, they'll take a lot of pulling back.
Yeah, he's got the engine, as we like to say in the world of cycling. But wise to it are the sprinters teams, and we can already see them amassing towards the front. Alpecin, De Koning are leading the peloton right now, but Trek Segafredo are there as well. You can bet that Bora Hansgrohe want to get involved, but potentially a little bit later on to try and lead out their remaining sprint in this race, Danny van Poppel. Of course, 2-stage wins for them on days 2 and 3, but there's confirmation of the order in which they crossed the line there. So Enric Mas taking the maximum points and the 3 bonus seconds on the line. You figured out why it is, Robbie?
Yes, because he vaulted now from 5th in the green jersey competition to 3rd. He was on 1:18. He was 15 points behind Marc Soler and Remco Evenepoel, and he leapfrogged over both of them.
Oh, crash.
Oh, no.
Oh, gross.
Craddock. Is it? No,
No, Craddock,
yeah.
Yeah.
And is that Mas just in front of him as well from Movistar? It is just at the back of that group, is it?
Don't think so. Looked a bit too large in stature to be Enric Mas, but there's nothing worse than crashing on the final day of a Grand Tour. Just when you want to get home and recover, you don't want to be recovering from a crash, you want to be recovering from the efforts over the course of the 3 weeks. But a normal touch of wheels there, and it's pretty tight around this circuit, Adam, isn't it?
Yeah, this point in particular, this is the tightest part of it, just up and down one road, as you can see. But the speed that they come into this road and slight downhill, a very, very fast right-hand corner, it drags up, so the peloton will slow down at the front, and the guys that will carry that speed, as we saw, they just run into the back of riders if you're not paying attention, which this will be a little bit of a wake-up for them. They've been so relaxed at the start, coming into this part of the race where it's hotting up. It's sort of that switch-on moment. Come on, switch on, and that's a very good example of it. And the director will be saying, there has been a crash in the peloton, guys. Just keep your eyes open, stay safe in there. We don't want any crashes.
So Platt and Johansson with a slender advantage off the front of the main peloton. And Johansson there behind looks like he's taken a few tips from Taco van der Hoorn when it comes to aerodynamics on the bike. He looks sleek, Robbie.
He does. I mean, low slung, narrow handlebars. And going back to, there was another Dutchman who started with that phenomenon of tipping he designed his own handlebars and tipped the brake levers.
Oh, I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, from Roompot.
Yeah.
Name escapes me, will come up with it. But yeah, really aerodynamic, and it's been catching on throughout the peloton.
Tim, I think at the end of the Vuelta, no one has fresh legs or feeling fresh anymore, but how fresh would you say you are feeling?
Not really fresh. I think that's normal. But yes, a big opportunity to win a stage in the Vuelta, so let's go for it.
Now it's already a Belgian national party maybe today with Remco. You're obviously in the Belgian colours. That would be something if you would fulfill the trilogy as well, winning in all stages, all Grand Tours.
What was the goal when I come to the Vuelta to make it, but for the moment, yeah, it didn't happen. So gonna try again today.
How happy are you? How special is this for Belgium, for Belgian cycling, that you have a Grand Tour winner, first time since 44 years?
Yeah, for Belgium it's really special. For me, I was in another race, I think. I didn't see him a lot. He was riding in front and was riding in the back, so yeah. But yeah, I'm very happy for Remco.
Success now.
Tim Melier there. Yeah, big day for the nation of Belgium. And wouldn't it be fitting to see the Belgian national champion crown out a successful 3 weeks for that nation with a stage win on the 21st and final day of the race? So in the background, you can see the main peloton not too far behind our two leaders. Quick-Step Alpha Vine on the right-hand side of our picture. And there is Remco Evenepoel in the leader's red jersey. His dad used to be a professional rider as well, Patrick Evenepoel, who actually rode the Vuelta a Espana back in 1993. That year, he finished second from last. So there's hope for our kids yet, Adam.
Yeah, well, my youngest is 3, so they've got a lot of time to start improving in much more ways than I was. So, yeah, they still do have hope. There is a story about Remco and his father there as well, that they were sat round his pool at their house and they were joking. Remco was saying, imagine if I finish first and you finish last in the Vuelta. How funny would that be?
Yeah, he wasn't quite last. He finished second from last on that particular Vuelta a Espana. But yeah, I think his son's slightly more gifted on the bike than his father Patrick. But how incredibly proud is he going to be feeling right now?
And granted that his dad was more of a sprinter type as well, so not so handy in the mountains.
A little bit like Wim van Sevenant and his son Mauri, completely different riders. Mauri riding for Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl as a pure climber pretty much, whereas Wim van Sevenant, key lieutenant for many years for Robbie McEwen, in riding on the flatter roads, bringing the breakaways back, in the same vein as Tim de Klerk in many respects. But yeah, Evenepoel's father Patrick, his only win came in the Grand Prix Wallonie, which brings me nicely on to what we've got coming up for you on Eurosport, Discovery Plus and GCN Plus over the next week, because it is not calming down after the Vuelta a Espana finishes in a few moments' time. I've already mentioned the World Championships in Australia starting a week today, but ahead of that, we've got the Tours of Luxembourg and Slovakia from Tuesday through to Saturday. Wednesday's a very busy day, because along with the men's and the women's Grand Prix Wallonie, we've also got another race down in Italy, the Giro della Toscana. There's a second Italian one-day race just 24 hours later on Thursday. We've also got the Primus Classic and the Championships of Flanders one-day races in Belgium. I think they are on Thursday and Friday of this week. So it doesn't calm down at all. And actually, cyclocross is on its way as well. We've got the first 2 rounds of the US Cyclocross Series on Saturday and Sunday evening if you're in Europe, or during the day, obviously, if you're over in the US. And the first round of the Exact Cyclocross Series, which used to be known as the ETHS, this coming Sunday. So if you can watch all of those live from start to finish, I'll give you a medal. Back to this race though, and these two riders who have animated proceedings so far still only hold on to that slender advantage. 38 kilometres of the Vuelta a Espana and stage 21 remaining. It's Bike Exchange, Alpecin de Koning and Trek Segafredo who are controlling things at the front. How much of a final sprint day in a Grand Tour, Robbie, comes down to freshness of legs and mind versus how good you are on paper?
I think it's determination as much as what you've got left in the legs. You know, everybody is tired, of course, but there are some who get through a Grand Tour better than others. You know, a guy like Mads Pedersen, he's looked as fresh through the final week as he did in the end of the first week. And there's others that are on their hands and knees, and then it always depends on what's happened to you through the race, how badly you've struggled with things like injury and illness. And I know actually Caden Groves has really struggled through the last few days. After he crashed on his shoulder. He's having a lot of trouble with his ribs and his shoulder. but he said he's going to give it a go at 100%, and he hopes the adrenaline takes over within the last few kilometres, and for those few minutes needed, that he won't feel it anymore. But there's plenty of riders like that in the peloton as well.
Well, the reason he struggled through those last few days with those injuries, Adam, is for a chance today.
It's exactly that, and one of the easiest days, but also the hardest mentally, when you want to just switch off, and especially with a start like that, you can easily switch off. But that win that he got will have given him a lot of confidence, even if he has got the injuries with his ribs, etc. He will still be very motivated for today, and I can only imagine he stayed in the race for this long just for this stage, to give it a good go at it.
So just under 37 kilometres remaining. We've got these 9 circuits of 5.6 kilometres around Madrid. It has been used a lot, of course, over the years as the finale of the Vuelta a Espana. Just to remind you, unlike what I said yesterday, it didn't finish in Madrid this time last year. But the previous 6 editions all did finish in Madrid. The last of those was in 2020, where the final stage was day 18, because the race was cut by a few stages due to the situation with COVID. The winner there was Pascal Ackermann, then riding for Bora Hansgrohe, but here today with UAE Team Emirates, as we see one of the Euskaltel Euskadi riders trying to bridge across to the front of the race. Before Pascal Ackermann, when we were here in 2019, it was Fabio Jakobsen who took the win, Viviani the year before that, Trentin in 2017, Magnus Cort Nielsen in 2016, and John Degenkolb the year before that.
Well, it does look to be Bike Exchange have come to the front with Luke Durbridge setting the pace, so Groves must be feeling good.
Yeah, well, they were determined that they're going to make the most of it. And I was talking to Caden Groves this morning, also to Gene Bates, the team director, and they said, you know, despite struggling over the last few days, this is exactly what the struggle has been for. So you've got to give it everything, no matter what, because you've got to make all that suffering worth it. And there's quite a few riders in that basket this afternoon as well. They've dragged their carcasses over those hard mountain stages just to get to this stage today, and they're going to take all the risks. They're going to go to the absolute maximum and not let anything that's happened over the last 3 weeks get in the way or in their thoughts when they're getting ready for today. Now, back to this position. Jan Willem van Schip was the man who pioneered this setup with the tipped-in brake levers and gear levers, the narrow handlebars, and it is very, very effective, especially now with the band positions that we have in the peloton. No super tuck, no draping your hands over the handlebars. So this is next best thing, and maybe the next thing that the UCI will start to look at.
Yeah, no puppy paws, as Carlton Kirby likes to call it. You'll be hearing from Carlton Kirby very shortly indeed. We're going to have an interview coming up just before that. I'm going to be exiting the commentary box along with Adam Blythe to get ready for the post-race breakaway show. But a huge thank you from me personally, and I'm sure from Adam Blythe as well, for your company over this season and the last 3 weeks. Plenty more racing to go, though. Not just today, but for the rest of this season. So I will leave you by handing over to Caden Groves for his thoughts on today's stage.
So Ken, how did you prepare for a stage like today, the final one in Madrid?
Well, I mean, there's not too much time to prepare, really. Just getting through the last week in the mountains, trying to get through as best as possible, saving energy where we can, and but yeah, I'm happy to be here.
How tough was that, getting through this week?
I mean, it was pretty tough. I had a crash a few days ago as well, so the body's been pretty sore. But thankfully, each day I'm out the back, all the guys will wait and get me through the stage. So without them, I wouldn't be here.
Now, compare this sprint stage maybe to the sprints where Mats Pedersen won, because they were all a little bit uphill. This is a flat sprint. Is that a completely different ballgame then?
I wouldn't say completely different, but I mean, I expect some other guys to be favourites here. You know, maybe Dan McClay, Tim Millier, and
Grove,
myself, Pascal Ackermann. So I think there's a few guys who can go well today, not just Mads.
What is key to the success for you then today?
For sure, it's a good run to the finish. Everyone's got tired legs. Maybe some guys are in better shape, but it all depends on the lead out, especially how you come out into and out of the final corner at 1.2k to go. And a lot of the time, the freshest guy wins.
Seeing those laughters, it's still good in the team, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, we're having a lot of fun. And got one day to go, and then we can celebrate. Thanks, mate.
Well, excuse me. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to Adam. Robbie, I remember stage 11 when Groves came through. You had a bit of a lump in your throat, mate.
I did have a lump in my throat and almost holes in the ceiling above it. Well, I would have if I could reach it in any case. I was punching the air. I was so pleased for him. He's had a lot of close calls this season, a lot of podium places. He's had a couple of good wins too, Tour of Catalonia amongst others. But his first big one, his first Grand Tour stage victory. And he was struggling a little bit, well, struggling a lot actually, with his positioning in the first few days when we're on the flat roads in the Netherlands. But he finally got it right, and what a job the team did for him on that day on stage 11 into Cabo Delgado. And an incredible sprint too. He got a little bit swamped from behind but found a way out, and then when he turned on the afterburners, from that point on, when he found some clear air, he never looked like getting rolled, and it was magnificent to watch.
I know you're quite closely tied in with Caden, and you must have imparted some advice, but what would you tell him on a day like today? I guess when you finally let sprinters or anyone that's in your charge that you're mentoring in a certain way, there comes a point where you just have to say, do what you know.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you exactly what I said to him. Well, not exactly. I won't give away all the tactics, but there's some stuff about positioning, the technical part of this circuit. But really, the most important thing I feel that I spoke about with Caden this morning is I said, everybody's exhausted. I know you're hurting. I know the shoulder's sore, the ribs are sore. It's been a real struggle, but you've struggled and suffered so badly to get to today. So make all that punishment worth it. It's one more chance. Your race has been excellent in any case because you've won a stage. See if you can finish it off the best way possible. Just give it 100%, and that nobody can ask more, and you can't ask more of yourself.
Exactly. Just pour into it exactly what you've got. Sean, we have a modest margin of 12 seconds. This is going to end in a sprint. They've dialed in, of course, the course. But it does change ever so slightly. Well, significantly, I think is a better word. The way you take it, and every single one of these hairpins on the last lap will have a very different complexion to the way they're being taken right now.
Well, yeah, there will be more of a fight, of course, of the hairpins, because there'll be people diving up the inside trying to win a couple of places. So it is going to get more hectic as we get closer to the finish. And what you have to do for the moment is you just sit there in that top 25 places and just stay there and keep a teammate around you or two teammates around you for safety, because you know, there you have the confidence more in them teammates, and just get the laps to go by here and get into the final, and then you're hoping that your teammates can deliver you right into the position you need to be, and that is just drop me off at that 200 metres, 150 metres, whatever you like to be dropped off at, and just open up your sprint, and that's all you can do, and you're hoping you're going to be the strongest.
$18 seconds is the gap. It's quite a feisty one, and suddenly this has woken up. You can see the pace that's being invoked here by the motorcycle, apart from anything else, just billowing the covers upon the barriers. These guys just leaning into these corners, giving themselves a decent view of it. This constant meeting in the centre of this three-legged star that we talked about, there is a little parkland area. You'll see fans sort of rushing across from one side to the next. We talk about the major cities that characterise the finales. Italy don't have one. They bounce around the place, to be honest, although they have been given over the last few years of finishing off in Milan, of course. But here in Madrid, and it's the same for the Champs-Élysées in Paris, it's very much got a traditional feel to it. But it doesn't matter how many times you take it on, every single peloton is different, and it seems as well that our approach to the finale, even if it is going to end in a sprint, can have a different complexion to it. What we don't want to see is any real of these compression crashes that we've seen in the past, Sean, and it can upset the apple cart at any point, including the last turn, of course, which comes just before the Flamme Rouge.
Yes, well, you know, there's always a risk when you're on a circuit at the finish, the corner you have to do and the tight ones as well. At any point there can be a crash, or either just, you know, corrects his line and the rider beside him maybe touches his wheel and down they go, and you know, that can cause a real panic. And you know, for the GC men, if they are caught up in a crash at this point, well, then there's a big panic. But if it's into the final sprint, of course, as a sprinter, if you go down the very final, well, then it's pretty much game over for you, and you're hoping that you don't get any major damage. But you know, when you're here as a sprinter or as a lead-out man for the sprinter, you're not thinking about the crashes. You're thinking about just getting to that place where you need to drop your man and leave him have a go for the stage honours here today.
It does. Sean, you often talk about the taste for the race, and it's overwhelming by the sounds of things. You disregard almost your own safety or your own fragility, let's put it that way, and just have to go all in.
Yes, well, you have to just you know, focus on what's the job is to be done, where you want to be, your teammates, you know, you just give them the guidance as well, and just get on with it. And if you start thinking about the danger, then you're a loser.
Simple as. Robbie, you've just got to invest. Simple as.
Yeah, words from the wise. I mean, it is exactly right. You couldn't put it any more bluntly nor succinctly. You think about it too much. You think about the dangers. You are the loser. Well said, Sean. We've still got 5 laps to pull in the break, but pretty strong duo here with Plapp and Johansson. I'm liking what they're doing.
Get your heads down. See who's chasing at the moment. If you want to know who is going to try and buy the right to fight a little bit later on. Trek never that far off the front, of course. Today's favourite is Mads Pedersen. Not quite so sure it may well work out all the way for him, although the unwind really comes at about 1.2 kilometres to go. So if you've got a decent lead-out train, and of course Mads Pedersen has, Alex Kirsch is the man who's going to be dropping him off at the very last. He did lose, of course, Ulla during the race, but then again, so many have also lost lead-out men along the way. Kellen O'Brien, of course, missing for Caden Groves, we remind you. But there are other teams here, because it is the very end of a 3-week race, 3-week tour. You have to factor in fatigue, probably more than you would on the sort of dialed-in sprints that we had at the top of this race that, of course, Sam Bennett took so effectively. Danny van Poppel, his lead-out man par excellence, not really his terrain today. He would have preferred something a bit more lumpy. But when you factor in the 3 weeks of the tour, if he's able to take lumps better, then he's come through the lumps and the bumps and the mountains, possibly better than a lot of the other quick men. So all of a sudden you get riders like Danny van Poppel, Robbie, elevated in terms of the pecking order for today.
Yeah, and elevated in the favouritism as well. Like you said, it's how you digest the 3 weeks of racing, and who's just going to be the strongest on the day coming into this last gasp after nearly 3,500 kilometres around Spain, up and down, and all the hidden pitfalls and the heat. And a guy like Danny van Poppel is in with a decent chance today. He's been sprinting really well, and his lead-outs for Sam Bennett early in this race were phenomenal.
We miss Sam, Sean. We miss him at a moment like this as well.
Yes, well, yeah, he's been a big miss in this race, and yeah, it's a big disappointment that he went out, because he needed to do a 3-week tour at the end of the season, and he had just got into the real shape where he was shown he was back to his best again, and unfortunately for him, COVID took him out of the race, as does many other riders, and it's a big disappointment. We did hear Mads Pedersen talking about if Sam was here, it would have been nice. It would have been a great battle for the green jersey, and that would have been definitely the case. But yeah, that's that's one of the things you have to try and get over with and get on with. And it's been a race where we were getting really worried at a point where we were losing a lot of riders. Thank God it did ease off a bit in the past week.
Carlos Canal, the sprinter from Euskadi, has just suffered a puncture, unfortunately. So I don't know whether he's going to get back in at full strength, but they've got some Martin as well, who can go quickly. We're going to hear from Danny Van Poppel about his thoughts on today. As I said, if he does take ramps better than normal sprinters, that's his preferred. This is that bunching I was telling you about on each of these hairpins. Can you imagine if there is if there's a lock-in, if you will, and there's a big party to try and get into that curve? That's the sort of thing, Robbie, that could alter the complexion of the day entirely.
Well, it can ruin the chances of those who are not being attentive enough to get up to the front when things really started to kick off. It's not just a case of position yourself the last 5K. It is the whole time you're on this circuit.
Let's hear from Danny Van Poppel.
Danny, I think most of the riders in this peloton are looking out for this stage because it's the last one, but you're probably looking out because you've got some winning to do today, right?
Yeah, it's the last sprint chance, flat sprint, especially for me after the Tour and now the Vuelta. I'm really looking forward to going home, but first today a nice sprint.
How did you came through this last difficult week?
Yeah, I felt what I say. I did. I felt a bit tired after the Tour, and I recovered not so quick anymore. So the stage that Peterson won, the last stage, I was not recovered well. Normally I'm there in this group, but yeah, on the end was a good Vuelta for me. I showed myself. Bit sad that Sam is not here, but yeah, then I tried to go my best for the sprint.
Well, you did, and you could do that again today. What do you think is key today, and how does this stage differ from the stages last week where we had a sprint?
Yeah, it's a flat sprint, so it's not for the powerful guys like Peterson. He's super in this, but now also Merlier can do a really good job. And yeah, I think it's everybody thinks you need to go really early into this corner, but on the end you can wait also quite long. I think that's a secret to win the stage here.
He's giving him all away. Joris Neuhaus, I'm afraid, has taken a crash for Team DSM. He was a lead-out star for John Degenkolb. It would have been between him and Nico Arndt. Arndt, of course, out of this race, so Degenkolb will be hampered by Neuhaus, unfortunately taking a tumble now. Had a crash, not quite sure the seriousness of it, but I'm sure he's got back in. Caden Groves crashed a little bit earlier on. He's back on and back in and looks okay. And Carlos Canal with a puncture. Sean, good fortune has to remain right till the very last, doesn't it?
Well, you do not want any hiccups, mechanical problems or having a crash, because the effort you have to make there to get back in. At this point in the race, it's all going to count, and the energy levels you have got, it's going to be an important one in this one. We heard from Van Poppel there talking, Van Poppel is the one who can really, filter through in the peloton, and he's the one that prepared to take risk as well. We see him with Dan McLay when Caden Groves won that stage, and he came through in the very dying moments, and got the best place he's had in this Vuelta. So he's the one can do well in this sprint as well. I know he gets over the lumpy stuff a bit better, but he did say there's more sprinters in the mix today. So for Peterson, it might not be as easy as it was in some of the other days where they got rid of the sprinters. And you look down through, Ackermann is there, Merlier, of course, Dan McLay, he could be up there as well today, and there's quite a few Groves as well as the one we talked about. So there's a good mix for the win here today, and it's going to be an exceptional big fight for the final corner. And yeah, men around you, then that's what you need. You do not want to be on the front or in the first, second position. That is with the wrong place to be. You need to be back a bit, but of course not too far off either.
4 laps to go. That was the counting down, I believe, anyway. Yeah, 4 laps remaining. With 3 laps to go, there'll be 17 kilometres remaining. That's really where we normally start to pace up, but we've already achieved that right now. Not least courtesy of a man that they must be quite worried about. No disrespect to Luke Plapp, but to my mind, it's Julius Johannesson who is the big threat. He's a great time trialist. He can make a great nuisance of himself as well. And today, he's doing exactly that. Took the Olympia Tour a couple of years ago, still only 22 years of age. He has no fear. He's off up the road in the good company of Luke Plapp. Let's see how they roll. 2 hours of racing, it says. I guess they started rolling that clock when they actually decided to engage. We only have 21.5 kilometres remaining, 20 seconds. It's a tenuous gap. I often wonder as well, when you have this clearer view of those who are up the road, because on the switchbacks, of course, you look straight into their faces, whether you can actually misjudge on occasion, Sean, that the distance that these guys have, or indeed their capabilities, because they look perhaps closer than they are, because you keep seeing them constantly heading back down the other side of the road.
Yes, well, that can be a mistake, but I think the big problem is when you get 2 riders like we have here in front, you know, 2 big, powerful riders, time trialists in their own right, and, you know, if they get working well together, well, then they can be a difficult one to pull back. And we can see 21 seconds, the way the peloton is going, they are putting a big fight, considering only 2 men out there, but still it's proving a bit more difficult for the peloton to close them down.
This is a constant process of reassembly, Robbie, because with all of these hairpins that we have to take, and we know how focused they are, it's only 2 lanes, for goodness sake, you will get yourself out of position constantly, and you have to get your team back together, nail it back together if you're going to, well, nail the victory.
It's a real criterium-style circuit around here in the centre of Madrid, and with those hairpin corners you can use so much energy. If you get yourself a little bit out of position, you come to a standstill in the hairpin, you're almost to full sprint just to hold the wheel. So the key is staying at the front and keeping teammates close. And you know, those who got themselves organised early, took control at the front, once you get there, it's a lot easier to stay there rather than trying to make your way up there from a long way back in the peloton. When you see how tight that is, when they round the hairpins. Yeah, but the disadvantage the 2 in front have is they're always seen by the peloton. They are crossing each other. There they go on the other side of the street. And the riders on the front of the peloton who are doing the chasing, they can also get a really good gauge as they come to a standstill already. 10th wheels almost at a standstill. They can get a really good gauge of how well those 2 riders are going. They can see the body language. They can see how they're on the bike, if they're still looking powerful or starting to fade. And it makes it really easy for them to get markers every lap. Like, OK, last lap, we crossed each other here, then over there. We know we're holding. You don't even need the time board anymore. And you can just gauge your effort by just looking at them.
That is a real worry, that corner. The best way through it is to drift over. These guys had the gift of that, to drift over to the right-hand side to take the left-hand hairpin. The trouble is, you open up the centre of the road whenever that happens. And we just saw a few moments ago that Davide Kimolai from Cofidis kind of came in, then hit the brakes, got into somebody from Quick Step, Alpha Vinyl. It was an absolute mess, and they've had plenty of practice at it. 19.1 kilometres from home, 17 seconds is the gap. 2 up the road, Luke Plapp and Julius Johannesson, 2 very, very strong riders. Looks like an Olympic flame. Yeah, the problem is all the hairpins. We've just been discussing how you can get yourself very much out of shape. If you go to take the corner as if you are on your own, then others will fill the gap on the inside that you basically want to turn into. So the best way to take a left-hander is to drift to the right-hand side of the road, take the apex, the nose off the apex of the corner, and smooth out the transition. There won't be space to do that, especially with the final turn coming as it does with 1 kilometre to go, about 1.2 actually. But nonetheless, there is some reassembly point after that. As Danny Van Poppel said, there's a chance to get back. It depends, Sean, though, how quickly those who get through the corner first, how many strongmen are up front, because you could find yourself playing catch-up to nothing.
Well, it will depend on the chasing group, and we can see that is Trek Segafredo are taking up the main part of the pulling here. And if you have 2 riders or 3 riders from the team that are riding on the front, well then they can negotiate the corners the way they like and get the line into the corners, and the riders that are waiting here, they're not going to start flying up to get into the front at the moment, but that gets more complicated as you go on, of course, and riders are a little further back, they're going to try that. But yeah, it's a danger one as well, because the team that is leading on the front, they will move out to get a good line for the corner. A rider comes up to cut it on the inside, and they will cut it tight then and try and chop him, and that's where the danger can arise.
It's going to take a lot of respect from a lot of riders and a lot of trust as well, I think it's fair to say. Let's hear from Pascal Ackermann, a man who he cannot answer a question without smiling, whether his day's gone well or not. I do like it.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm still motivated and my leg's quite good. And yeah, I still wait for my victory here because I was 2 times really close. So today is hopefully the day and we're going to try everything. And I think we have a super strong team today. We are one of the only teams who have a lead out. So let's do it today.
How has been these 3 weeks for you? Because I mean, there are not many chances for the sprinters. We had a lot of battle in the mountains. So how is it to survive, let's say, these 3 weeks to arrive kind of fresh to the last day?
Yeah, I mean, for us sprinters, it's really hard because there's so many mountain uphill finishes. And yeah, especially for me, it was really hard in the first week because I had a crash in the Europeans and had really trouble with my finger. So I couldn't really go deep in the first day, so I lost already 2 chances, and I think I could move up in the next days, and so hopefully today I will have the legs to win.
Who do you think are the main rivals? Do you think the sprinters, they are still as fresh as they've been the last day?
I think nobody is fresh anymore. Also, I hope Mats is really tired today because he showed up that he's super strong in the last week. So yeah, and we also have Tim Merlier. He was one of the best sprinters this year. Also, Caden Groves is fucking strong. So yeah, it's still interesting, and it's the last day. Everybody has to be motivated, keep fresh, and try everything.
Well, he says it all with a smile. Yes, some of his rivals are very strong, as we've got. Sorry about that. Yeah, do you see what? Yeah, exactly. Do you see what I mean about Pascal Ackermann? Yeah, I broke my finger, and there are other people here who've been better than me, but it's still with a smile. I love him for that, Robbie.
Yeah, I do. He's very interviewable. He's so likeable, Pascal Ackermann.
Such a nice guy.
There's you could forgive him as a guy who has come to this Vuelta and not yet won a stage to look a bit stressed, to be a little bit prickly to interview coming into the very last chance to rescue his personal Vuelta with a victory on this stage. But no, he's just smiling and happy, and I've got to admit, I would like to see him come out of this Vuelta with a stage victory. But I'm really looking forward to this sprint. I mean, I always love in the Grand Tours when it's a normal road stage for the final stage, we get a big bunch sprint that is some reward for the men who have suffered so badly just to make it. They've really had to just buckle themselves to be in contention on the last day, and it's a nice reward. Of course, only one gets it, but it's always a beautiful sprint to watch on the last day of a Grand Tour.
Sean, stage 13 up to Montilla when Pedersen came by Ackermann, who was brave enough to go on the attack early, turned himself into what we now regard as a bit of a ramp specialist, Pascal Ackermann. Coquard came through. Coquard no longer part of this race, of course, but second on that day. Ackermann, just personally speaking, I mean, I called him in that day and just said how kind it would be, how nice it would be to see him win. He's such a lovely bloke. Is he too much of a nice guy, Sean?
No, I don't think in the final he'll be no nice about him. He will be just very aggressive. And
come on,
what a difference between Ackermann and Tim Merlier in the interview. And Ackermann is always smiling and always happy. But when the chips are down here, everybody is going to be aggressive, and nobody will give you an inch into the corner. And if you try and as we talked about, just come bulldozing up at the inside, they will not back off and from cutting you off, so there's always the danger there. And Ackermann, he did maybe take a little bit of a flyer a bit too early in the sprints, and that tells that maybe his confidence wasn't good enough in the straight out sprint against Mats Pedersen. But who could match Pedersen in the sprints we've seen here. He was just unbeatable, but today is more of a level playing pitch.
Agreed entirely. These guys have still got 22 seconds. When do we worry about it, Robbie?
Now.
I would say now, exactly. I would say probably about 5 minutes ago was the moment to start worrying about them. It's gone up and down. It's been down to 16, 17, back out to 22. But it seems to be always these hairpin corners, the technical aspect of this circuit that's really been their friend for the two out the front. And we said when they went away, these are two guys who you don't want to mess with and give them too much, because they will take a lot of pulling back. Luke Plapp is a real time trial specialist and also a track specialist. And as we said, Johansson, a winner of the Olympias Tour. This is this type of racing, Olympias Tour, so it really suits his style as well.
It's been a long time since we've had a steal with the great Ilio Kaiser, one of my favourite riders of all time, great 6-day man as well. Coming through. It's that kind of 6-day mentality, isn't it? Just keep on going, batter yourself for goodness sake, because you're going to have to come out and do it all over again.
And they all have been leaning on Trek Segafredo, but now we see a change here. There's other teams we can see. Alpecin has come to the front. Bike Exchange are also getting involved. They know that, you know, it's getting dangerous now, so the other teams are preparing the sprint for their sprinter.
Well, let's go through them, shall we? Caden Groves for Bike Exchange in the multi-blue. We've got Tim Malia in that dark royal blue, you might say, with Vermeersch to lead him out. Rob Stannard will also be doing some work. That's a great lead-out train too. He's got a great chance, as Tim Malia, who will be, of course, sporting the tricolour of Belgium. Pascal Ackermann, Mr. Smiles, he'll be out trying to stop these guys, with Molano being his last man standing. Ivo Oliveira will also help with the drive. Dan McClay in the Dayglow yellow of Arkea Samsic. Last chance for him with Clément Rousseau as his lead-out man. They've been swapping duties, but this is a McClay day. Carlos Canalo had a puncture. He's got Gotson Martin from Euskadel Euskadi to lead him in. Canal, you never know. Canal boat is slow. He is fast. Francisco Galvin from Equipo Kern Farmer. Watch that in the petrol blue. Ezquerra or Yetzebo? No. Mats Pedersen in the green, yes. Alex Kirch will be leading him in. We've got Caden Groves, we mentioned. John Degenkov, why not? Neuhaus has had a crash. Is he hampered? Well, possibly, but he's back where he needs to be. Darrell Impey, never discount, great deal of experience. Pat Bevan will be trying to help out there. Cedric Bullen for Lotto Sudal. We have Julius Johannesson, who is a sprinter. He's up the road. I marked him up earlier on. There's nobody else quick left within Intermarché Wanty. He's got nobody. He has to help himself, and at the moment he is in the good company of Luke Plapp up the road. So if it all comes back together, they are done for, but they've got a margin of 24 seconds, and if it is a sprint, it should be Julius Johansson. Plapp will know that. Ben Turner of Ineos Grenadiers, Plapp's teammate. Well, they won't be resting on their laurels. They'll be going all in for Ben. You can be sure about that. Danny Van Poppel, we mentioned, with Ryan Mullen setting a decent pace for him. That's a very good pairing, and you never know on a day like this, because Van Poppel will have come through the mountains better than most of the quick men. Julius van den Berg for Education Easy Post. Leinhardt, Liney or Kenton Pacher will be Liney. Maybe Miles Scottson will be doing the magic for Leinhardt for Groupama Francijo. Fred Wright, of course, the eternal flame that burns of hope for him. Will it be finally burning brightly today? We shall wait and see. It's a tall order for Fred Wright, who's done brilliant work yet again within this race. Mike Turnerson for Jumbo-Visma, bringing cheer to them. There you go. That's your lot, and they are very accomplished, but they're also very tired, and this is very technical. So therefore, Sean, we don't know how this is going to pan out.
Yes, well, 2 laps to go, and the names you've mentioned, Carlton, there's not going to be room for all of them in the front of the peloton.
Well, we're there now, Robbie.
We're at the front, and as Sean said, there's not room for that many. I think you might have gone through the entire peloton just now, because why not? It's the last chance.
Yeah.
And there's so many that haven't won a stage yet, so why not get amongst the sprint? But I tell you what, that while you were just consulting your list there, what made me giggle was Luke Plapp. He was in the wheel of Johansson. As Johansson was doing a big turn, and Plapp turned to the camera, gave the peace sign, and a bit of a smile, tongue out, like, I am just having a whole lot of fun out here in my first Grand Tour.
Good lad.
Brilliant.
Love that. He was very, very kind as well, Luke Platt, when interviewed at the top of the day, in his praise and feting of the winner of this great race, Remco Evenepoel. And it was really nice to see just youngsters acknowledging youngsters and the greatness therein. And we've got so many in this new wave. And here we go. Wave goodbye to tranquility. It's Arkeas Zamsic just coming up and helping out as well, buying their right to fight with 10 kilometers to go. Don't forget, when we cross the line next time by, we will only have one remaining. That will be at 5.8 kilometers from home. So 18 seconds. It's holding at the moment. When do they kick on? Those who are chasing, I'm talking about, they're going to get a kick in the pants if they don't start it soon.
They've been kicking on for about the last 10k, but they're just not really reeling them in. 19 seconds it remains.
Yes,
Sean, what are they going to do?
Well, I think they're all pretty much, really pushing here on the front of the peloton. The teams we've seen there, we can see, Trek Segafredo again coming to the front there. Cataldo just keeping the pace high, and you can see 18, 21. So they're not closing it down as they would like to, and this can be a problem then when they do get back. For the sprint, the lead out, there could be some of the men used before that, so it could get very difficult and very scrappy as we run to the line.
Trek here trying to guide Mads Pedersen, as you see. Danny Van Poppel's Bora Hansgrohe boys in the petrol blue also there. And look at this, they look like they're on a tandem momentarily there, even sharing pedal stroke for pedal stroke. Similar gearing and similar ambition for these two. 17 seconds. I'm just wondering, have they kept anything left in the tank, Sean, for a final kick, this pair?
Well, I think they're, giving it pretty much their all, and it depends on now how much more they can give. If they can continue on the same as they've been doing the last number of kilometres, well, they could really put it up to them. But will the team start panicking? Because I think they're holding off with men. They're probably saying, well, let's wait and see. We do not want to use this guy because we want him for the final run in. And maybe their team's in that situation, but then the panic button will be pushed and they'll all have to really push on the front. But this is a problem, one with the corners. To get a team organised, I get a number of riders together, it's so difficult with these technical corners.
Coming to a virtual standstill, almost a literal standstill for some. You can unclip if life's not going well for you. And look at this, Alpecin de Koning working for the Belgian champion, Tim Malia. And just tucked in behind it is Bike Exchange, working, of course, for Caden Groves. There come Trek with the big green meanie of Mads Pedersen, who's been eating everything. These guys are eating into the rest of the terrain. They are able to thread the needle constantly, Robbie McEwen, better than the pack.
Yeah, still holding that 17, 18 seconds. And with these hairpin corners, it's so much to the advantage of these two riders. They go through, they accelerate hard out of it. We're in the peloton. They're not able to use their power in numbers for very long, because then there's another corner. They're full on the brakes. And the riders at the front of the peloton, the domestiques riding for their sprinters, they're not really jumping out of the corners. They're trying to take it easy out of the corners, let their sprinters cruise up to speed and not burn the sprint legs. And of course, like Sean mentioned, the teams are depleted. Nobody's got the full complement, so they're all trying to just manage their resources very carefully, not use anyone up too soon and save it for the last moment. It is starting to gamble. 7.5 kilometres to go. This is now the smallest the gap has been at 15 seconds as more teams get involved, and they have seen the danger most definitely.
Well, there's two up the road at the moment. They're from Alpecin de Koning, trying to work for Tim Malia, who is disengaged from them. In fact, the two who are driving on have disengaged the rest of the peloton. These guys, the two from Alpecin de Koning I'm talking about, they just rolled off gently and had to be called back, essentially. Malia tucked in about wheel 15 at the moment, away from his teammates. Bad positioning has been his problem, quite frankly, during this race, and it may well be so again today. 6.7 kilometres from home, 14 seconds is the gap. We talk about breakaways, and we talk about them just holding enough back to then fully invest. 6.6 kilometres to go. They're about to take the bell. That's the final hairpin. There's debris all over the place, as you can see. The security people are trying to strip it out. Here goes the camera bike. He'll lean through as best he can. What about these guys? Remember this corner. This amount of riders won't be wanting to fit through that little eye of the needle late on. You can be absolutely certain. So will it string out? Yes, it will. What cost will that have for the sprinters? Anybody's guess. 14 seconds we're holding, Sean.
Yes, well, it is holding, but it is coming down a bit, as we can see. 13 seconds now, so it's dropped off a number of seconds here, and yeah, the teams are, you know, really just winding it up now as we go inside the 6 kilometers to go. Unless these two guys can really pull some of the bag and put a big effort in this final number of kilometers, you know, the peloton should be the strongest. As we can see, you know, different jerseys coming to the front, but the problem is, you know, there's riders wanting to hold off here, and that could be the death of not catching them.
And the bell will ring upon them. This will announce the final lap of the final stage of this great Vuelta, and here they come, absolutely mobbed across the road, as you can see. There's the bell. It's time to go. Maybe issue a knockout blow. Let's see if Julius Johansson and Luke Plapp can hold on. How long are they waiting? We cut to a fountain shot here. All very nice, but we want to see this visual as to how close they are. And there's the bell which announces it. What, around about 10, 11 seconds? Who knows? And they're streaking through. Daryl Impey's boys are doing a fantastic job for Israel Premier Tech. Don't think I mentioned Julius van der Berg from EF Education Easy Post. They've had some great success in this race, courtesy of Rigoberto Urán. But also, of course, they'd like to be involved at the sprint at the pointy end. You never know. 12 seconds, 5.2 to go, Robbie.
Well, they'll be going hard all through this last lap that they just rode. They've pulled it from around 20 seconds down to 10 now for Luke Plapp and Julius Johansson. But they have put in an absolutely superb job, these two. I mean, the lower jaws now starting to come out from Johansson. He's got the bottom teeth out further than the top teeth. He is suffering, but they have done an incredible job off the front of the peloton, but there's more and more fresh riders coming to the front. Israel Premier Tech with Impey and Paddy Bevan. Yet another hairpin. This is good news for the two off the front, because the peloton's not rolling up on them. They've got to brake, re-accelerate, look after their sprinters. 4.5k to go. It looks unlikely, but do not count out that Plapp and Johansson can stay away.
Yep, absolutely. Double turn is going to be taken by them, so they'll be slightly out of sight, if not out of mind, in a few moments' time. That will cut them down to around about the 4 kilometers to go marker. It's a double turn here, a double right-hander that they will take, so they drift to the centre of the road, and as is always the case, they're able to take the apex much nicer than anybody else. These guys are fighting for position to hold on to that and to make sure that they've got something to deliver at the end, rather than just a bag of nerves. 4.1 kilometers from home, there'll be another hairpin. It's Kamikaze Corner, and it's coming up right now. There's too many riders. They're opening up at the centre. This is going to be dramatic. That's that little kink that I was telling you about, that right-hander. The hairpin still to come. A breakaway will be going through it in the breakers. Plapp and Johansson will be going through it in about 200 metres time, and then everyone else has got to fit through the same space, and this is the most focused turn that we're going to have to deal with. For the rest, it's very, very narrow. Here we are, only 2 lanes to play with, big compression going up. My goodness, this is going to hurt, Robbie.
And this is about the point they're going to catch them on the approach to that hairpin. It's going to get very, very crowded, and you can see the peloton completely filling that whole lane and all pushing to try and be at the front. It's all about position now. The sprinters trying to save their legs. You get too far back now, it'll string out. You'll have to burn too many matches to get back to the front. Alpecin Koenig on the right, Bike Exchange behind. Up on the left for Fred Wright, green jersey as well. Mads Pedersen right at the front, coming towards that hairpin.
Ready for the twisty stuff, Anti-M. Here we come. It's a big, big left-hander, and none bigger, I don't think. There's more hairpins to come, but let's see how they fit through here. And again, that big compression, the 2 sail round. Brave as they are, they're just about to be tagged, and it's Bahrain Victorious that set off in hot pursuit. Fred Wright doesn't mind a bit of rough stuff. Let's see if he's got the right stuff at the end of today. Johansson picks it up again. He's now essentially already sprinting for the line. And all he does is sling Luke Plapp into position yet again. They exchange. Luke Plapp gives us a big old grin. Look at that. Fantastic. A man in control of his own destiny, perhaps, but he knows that today is perhaps not his day. 2.7 kilometers to go. Next couple of turns, there'll be a gentle-ish left-hander, a very focused 90-degree turn at 2.2. So they've got to deal with that. And then, of course, we still await the final hairpin, which will open us up just by the Flandre Rouge. Sean, it's complicated.
Yes, it is complicated, and we can see there, you know, the different teams. Israel, we could see Impey came to the front and gave a really big pull there. We can see now it's Bahrain. It looks like Sutherland is pulling on, but the two out front, we could see, you know, they had a bit more to give when they were almost pulled in, and they just edge it out a little bit more. But you know, we can see the peloton, they're just on them now, and still 2 kilometers to go, so it's just not going to happen for the two men out front.
100 meters remaining. There is another kink before the final hairpin. There's also a kink just before we get to the finale, as if there could not be. This is an amazing course. We've loved watching it in the past and really loving it at the moment. Johannesson and Plapp still dangling out there like a carrot, and indeed are they issuing a stick behind. Let's wait and see. It is Bahrain victorious on their case and coming to join the fun. UAE Team Emirates, this is for Pascal Ackermann. Where are Trek Segafredo? No, they won't be that far off the point, I can tell you. Israel are also working very hard. 1400 meters. Flamme Rouge beckons. So does this double. It's a double phase left-hander that they will take to get to the Flamme Rouge. It's any moment now for these guys, and they still cannot be fully wound in. All credit to them. I don't think there's any panic behind, but this is a big moment now, Robbie. Here we go.
I am loving the effort by Plapp and Johannesson. They just refuse to be caught. The lead-out's coming into full swing. Alpecin de Koenig. Ackermann well placed with 2 teammates in front. There's the green jersey of Mads Pedersen. Also Danny van Poppel next to him. Groves also well placed. And Dan McLeod moving himself up into the ruckus as well.
Kimmelai's also in the frame, so is Fred Wright. They want to be part of proceedings here. Coming up as well is Ben Turner for Ineos Grenadiers, and still Johannesson has his nose in the lead. They're almost blocking the field here, but ultimately, surely, the green jersey has to come through. That camera bike is busy saying, hello, mum, we're not interested. Meanwhile, over on the barriers, you can see Dan McLeod trying to just bide his time and maybe fully invest. Let's wait and see. Good effort by Ben Turner here to stay where he wants to be. Caden Groves is also tucked in. He's going to have to go solo now because there's no more teammates around him. Anybody's party. Here we go. It's lighted up time. Ben Turner's looking very, very strong, but the green meanie is coming through right now. Ackermann, well, it's time to go, my friend, if you want to be smiling for real reasons at the end of today. And at the centre of the road, and Ackermann responds. This is brilliant by Ackermann. He's still got a lead-out man with him, but is he going to shred it right now? Oh, well, let's wait and see. It's going to be on the front. Oh, my life.
Milano.
My goodness, it was Milano in front of Ackermann. He just carried on the drive. I'm not sure whether Ackermann was waiting there for a move from Mads Pedersen, but Milano just kept the job going. Brilliant surprise at the end, fabulously so, and a fabulous winner of this race we have as well. You saw the joy unbridled across the face there of our winner, Remco Evenepoel. What a Vuelta, what a finale, what an amazing race this is. How's about that, Robbie?
Well, this race has given us surprise after surprise and twists and turns right throughout. And the lead-out man wins the bunch sprint. He started to wander a little bit off his line to the left when he felt the heat coming from Mads Pedersen. And all the congratulations go to this man, Remco Evenepoel, has won his first Grand Tour, the first Belgian Grand Tour victory in 44 years. The question marks were there at the start. Can he hold on for 3 weeks with the form that he's shown in the 1 week races? And we definitely have our answer.
Absolutely wonderful. Great race, Sean, and a great winner.
Yes, well, what a winner. And you know, we've talked so much about this man because he's been so prominent in the earlier part of the race. He was, you know, looking so good, and yeah, he's just held on the same form all the way through. And yeah, it's been a magnificent tour for him, and you know, it's something that I think we were questioning. Would he be able to hold on to 3 weeks? I presume himself as well. He was into the unknown, you know, not been in that position ever in his life before, but you know, does the job magnificently. And as we go back to the sprint here, we did see the team of UAE. They did a great job because we had Soler on the front. We had the man, the Portuguese rider Oliveira, and then it was Milano who took it up. And you know, the power he had, and he could see that the green jersey was beside him there, so he kept on sprinting, and Ackermann in the wheel just had not got the legs.
Absolutely magnificent. You know, it's a great win for them. It's a fabulous win for Juan Sebastian Molano. They have been exchanging duties. We mentioned that. But it was circumstance that drew out this response. They drove it in absolutely exceptionally. That was Ivo Oliveira, the Portuguese, with the drive to tee this up. And then with the danger, of course, of Mats Pedersen coming up in the green jersey, it meant that it needed a sustained effort from Juan Sebastian Molano to get to the line, and I guess he accidentally won it. Let's have a look at that's suddenly a fixed grin there from Pascal Ackermann.
No, I don't think it's accidentally. I think when you're in a position like that and you're leading out the sprint and you're just looking under your elbows, under your arms, and you see you have the green jersey there, but you also know Ackermann is there, and you just go full onto the line, and it's up to your sprinter to come by you. But if you're the strongest, well, then it's victory for you.
If you're the strongest, and throughout the entire 3 weeks, the strongest man was Remco Evenepoel. Well, I believe that's his fiancée.
Yes, it is.
Hope so.
Me too, sure. Oh dear. Well, this is going to go on for some time. Let the party begin, Robbie.
Well, the party will go long into tomorrow. Oh, in fact, it's already tomorrow where I'm sitting.
Is that a bid to go to bed?
No, far from it. I'm still too excited from watching that sprint.
Good man.
And yeah, they were all lined across the road. You know, Molano, Pedersen, Mike Turnison, Danny Van Poppel, Caden Groves tucked just in behind alongside Ackermann.
Let's have a look.
What a sprint.
This is how it came to the line. Molano took it ahead of Mats Pedersen with Pascal Ackermann in the third place. They needed his photo. It's been a while. Turnison was well positioned. So was Danny Van Poppel, Caden Groves, Fred Wright, Tamino, Turner, Buellens as well. Tim Malia, was he here? He was, but not first across the line.
That's it. The 2022 Vuelta a Espana is over. Remco Evenepoel is the new champion, and UAE Team Emirates confounded us right until the last. Their lead-out man taking the victory over their sprinter. Dan, that was quite something, wasn't it?
It's been such an interesting team to analyse over the course of this World. We've talked about Soler, Ayuso and Almeida seeming like their own teams, not really working for each other. I took that back over the last few days, but again today, a slightly strange situation. You don't normally get a lead-out rider who beats his sprinter to the line, but Juan Sebastian Molano has done exactly that today. It's his first win at World Tour level, and he's clearly on very, very good form. And it happened once before where, I can't remember which stage it was, after Sam Bennett had gone home, but Molano actually ended up sprinting for himself after losing Ackermann and realising that on the way into the line. But yes, Ackermann was patting him on the back, so presumably was pleased for him at the stage finish. But it is a slightly strange situation to see that.
Carlton and Robbie were trying to work out there whether Molano intended to go for that win or whether he surprised himself in the end. Adam, with your sprint experience, what do you think?
Well, there's not a lot of that, really, to be honest. But no, he just did the perfect job. Ackermann just didn't have the legs to come round him. It's just, that sprint is a tough sprint. It's almost in a little bit slow motion uphill, and we could see everyone was sort of drag racing to the line, and Molano just had exceptional legs. It'll be more annoying for his teammate just sat behind him who's not able to come past. But in that situation, if he sat up, Pedersen would have won. So he did exactly the right thing, and he'll have got a nice little bonus.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Ackermann that couldn't get past him. Obviously, nobody could get past Molano by the finish line, so he fully deserved that stage. And you wonder if it's the start of him saying, look, I deserve my own opportunities. I think it's his 4th year now with UAE Team Emirates, and for most of that, he has acted as a lead-out rider for others at the biggest race in the world, and he gets his own opportunities in slightly smaller races. But with that win today, I know it's not the strongest sprint field, but he still took that win fairly convincingly.
What a way as well for that team to finish the Vuelta. I mean, the party tonight that they're going to have is going to be absolutely brilliant. But it's true, though, isn't it? They've wanted Ackermann to win, but they'll have expected that time. They'd have probably expected it to be right down to the wire with Pedersen. It'd have been a very, very good ride for him to get past him. But for Milano to win, it's completely out of the blue, so they'll just be buzzing on the bus.
I tell you what's really impressive as well is Marc Soler doing that lead out when we understand he was out having a bit of a celebration until 4 a.m. this morning. We get some information from on the ground, Dan. That's impressive.
Quick recovery. Of course, it was a late start and a nice amble start as well, where they didn't go particularly hard. But yeah, he did actually a genuinely brilliant lead out for somebody that's basically a climber in this race and always is. He was on the front almost into the last kilometre of the race, wasn't he? He left it over to Oliveira then, who did a brilliant job himself. And then it was down to Milano, who played it very cleverly as well as very strongly towards the end. But yeah, Marc Soler, I've not seen him do lead-out stuff like that before.
It's like Vivo in the Giro. We've got Marc Soler in the Vuelta now.
But they've had, I mean, when you look back at the results, UAE Team Emirates have had a brilliant race. You know, third place on the podium. They've also got Almeida up there in the top 5 of GC. They've got stayed with Soler, now with Milano. And I think they won the team's classification by about an hour.
They did. And I wonder what they could have done if they had played it more by the usual rule book, Adam. But it was fantastic stuff, all right.
Yeah, I don't think as much, and I don't care about it, because I think it's absolutely wonderful the way they've ridden. It gives us something to question, but it gives us that excitement as well in between it all. So I don't know what more they could have really done. I mean, riding together, it might have just not... It might have gone backwards completely on them, one waiting for the other. Who knows what might have happened, but I don't really want it to change. It's great for us to talk about it. It's great entertainment to watch. And when you see the likes of Soler today coming into the finish, they must have bets on in the bus or something like, right, I bet you can't do a lead-out today. But, all right, game on, let's do it.
Yeah, if they'd ridden cohesively, it might have nullified everything. It was an absolute joy to watch.
That's as much as they've ridden a team this whole race, and they've actually won, apart from the team time trial, obviously.
Yeah, well, let's get some reaction from on the ground, shall we? It's Alberto Contador.
We are here just in front of the party of the quick step. We are looking that it's the first big tour, the first grand tour for Remco. Where will be the limit? We don't know. Yesterday I was speaking with him about the possibilities of the future. If he wants fight with Pogacar, with Vingegaard, of course, also the team will be very important. But of course, this victory for him is really, really, really important. Give a lot of confidence and also incredible day for Belgium. 44 years after new victory in a Grand Tour, the Vuelta a España, with this man.
I think Alberto's going to be enjoying the party in Madrid tonight, and why not? Let's talk through that sprint finish then, Adam, because Milano was not a name in anybody's lips until he crossed the line first.
It wasn't at all, but it was just a case of those lead-outs coming together. We can see here, this is, I think it's Oliveira on the front, and then he got Milano just sat behind. This is the point where Trek Segafredo tried to come with Pedersen on the side, but just watch Milano now. This is about 250 metres to go. He's got Ackermann on his wheel. Pedersen's full flight as well. That's 150, but he just doesn't slow down. He just doesn't weaken. He's strong all the way to line, deviates off his line ever so slightly, but not putting anyone in trouble. He was just supremely better than everyone, but it was a very strong sprint from soon as he kicked to the finish. He didn't slow down. I can imagine that power curve, if we looked at it, it would be just a straight line all the way to the finish. It was incredible.
Given how long that sprint looked there, do you think Pascal Ackermann could reasonably have expected him to be swinging off at some stage and he was going to get his chance? Because, as you say, nobody could come past Milano, but at the same time, Ackermann wouldn't have thought he needed to, would he?
No, but, I mean, you're not going to take that risk because he wasn't 100% sure that Ackermann was going to be the next rider across the line. As it turned out, he wasn't. He was beaten by Mats Pedersen. He was sandwiched between those two UAE Emirates riders. So, no, I think Milano did the right thing. Maybe Pascal was thinking maybe he could have gone a little bit earlier and launched me a bit earlier. But, you know, Milano found Trek Segafredo to his left doing their lead-out, so it gave him a little bit more slipstream. He saved a bit more energy before the line. So by the time he did his lead-out, I don't think it was 250. It looked more like 200 or so to go,
Let's
I think,
call it
before.
225 then.
Go in the middle. Either way, I mean, it's a reasonably long sprint, but he just kept going, and if Ackermann had come past him, he would have done the perfect job. It was only that Ackermann couldn't get past his man.
Mads Pedersen is not going to be too disappointed with that, though, is he, Adam? He comes away from this Vuelta with a hat-trick of wins and the green jersey. It's been a phenomenal 3 weeks for him, hasn't it?
Probably the best 3 weeks he's had in terms of his whole bike racing career. It was just Mads Pedersen, if this was his only focus of the year, it would have been very impressive. But the Tour de France he did amazing in that. And it was a late call-up for him to do the Vuelta. It was sort of like, oh, go on then, I might as well have a go. My form's all right. I bet he's happy he did now because he's so successful. 3-stage win in the green jersey, you say. I mean, for him, he couldn't have asked for more, I don't think.
He was literally unbeatable in the end. Let's have a little look at how the points classification panned out then. Mads Pedersen winning that for the first time with well over double the number of points on Fred Wright, who himself has had a fantastic tour. Enric Mas finishes in third, so leapfrogging Remco Evenepoel there with Marc Soler. And we've got a mixture of GC guys and sprinters as well. And you've got to wonder, Dan, Mads Pedersen winning 3 stages here and the green jersey. He has won a stage of the Tour de France now as well this year, and he's a former world champion. Where do you think this particular race ranks for him in terms of successes?
I'll be right up there. I mean, that level of consistency over the course of 3 weeks at the end of the season that he's had, his 82nd day of racing this year. By modern standards, that's an enormous amount of racing to do in a single season. And he was winning right from the start. You know, back in February, it was a fairly small French race. I think it was Étoile de Bessèges, but he was still winning really tough finishes, second on another even tougher finish there. It's hard to hold your form from February through to the Tour de France, which he did, let alone going all the way through to mid-September, as we are now, with the kind of form that he's on. I mean, when you look back at what he's done this season, you can understand his decision not to fly to Australia for the World Championships. But it is a World Championships that I would say suits him down to the ground, given his current form. But in terms of where he goes next year, I think we've not seen the best of Mads Pedersen when it comes to the Spring Classics. Many years ago, before he won the World Championships, as a really young rider, he was second at the Tour of Flanders. But since that point, you know, I've always been expecting to land a big one in the spring. You know, one of the cobbled monuments, a Tour of Flanders or a Paris-Roubaix. He's obviously got what it takes. I just hope that he gets the right run for them next year.
I think this race was preparation for next year. Not go into it, see how you can do, but I think this was a big building block. Say, let's get some real deep base in your legs before you go into the winter, and this can be the start of almost your winter training going into the classics, because he's never done this race before. So going into it now might just raise his level a little bit earlier than he wanted to. That might benefit him for the classics.
Got to wonder as well about that decision to not go to the World Championships. As he said, I think it was before this race or maybe during the race, he has a wife, he has a life. He spent an awful lot of time away from home because of racing. We were trying to work out over dinner the other evening whether that's a decision he could then reverse given team announcements and whatnot. But you've got to think he might be regretting that somewhat.
I think he might be, just because there aren't that many that are going to suit him really perfectly. You know, Harrogate was one of them. He took the win there. But we might have flatter ones which are going to be far more suited to the real pure sprinters. And Mads Pedersen still, to me, is not a pure sprinter. He needs it to be at the end of a hard, long day. And then we're going to have other years where it's far more mountainous and it suits the climbers, because they need to vary it so it suits different types of riders. So he's still fairly young, but the number of times that the World Championships course is going to suit him down to the ground might be quite limited at this point. And this is a big opportunity for him, but it's his own decision. And I think he's clearly at peace with the decision he's made. He doesn't sound like he's changed his mind on it.
I think as well, once he switches off, to then be trying to switch back on for something he ultimately said he didn't want to do, that level of commitment once again goes up. And when you're like telling yourself, this is it, this is it, this is it, and then you go, right, go on, I'll have a go at it, I'll try and win. I know that sounds right, he's probably not, I'll try and win, but to get himself back up to that level mentally after all this, I can imagine it's a massive amount of effort almost and time that it's going to take away from him that he won't get back. But I think going into the race, unless you're full 100% going to be there, committed to it, I don't think there's any point in going for the likes of Mads, because he'll just be disappointed if he doesn't win.
Yeah, and I guess he's done it already, hasn't he? Rainbow Band's completed it. Well, let's hear from a rider who knows what success means at this race, albeit a few years ago. It's Chris Froome.
A lot of people love you, Chris.
Yeah, it's nice. Nice to be appreciated.
How did you live this Vuelta?
Good feelings. I mean, it's been a tough race for me personally. Obviously, since I had COVID, I'm just haven't been feeling the same. But having said that, I'm happy to have been here at the Vuelta to get another Grand Tour in the legs. I think it's gonna help me going forwards and start next season fresh and with new energy, new motivation.
And your opinion about Remco? Is the winner of this Vuelta?
Yeah, he's been very impressive. Very impressive. I had a few doubts towards the end of the second week. He showed a few signs of weakness, but he's held on really well in the last few days, and chapeau. He deserves a victory, and I look forward to seeing what comes next for him.
Thank you very much. Jump into the bus.
Thank you.
As Chris Froome says, it was a tough race for him. It's been a mixed season, really, Adam, hasn't it? We had high hopes for him at the Tour de France when he finished third on the Alpe d'Huez stage. What next for him, realistically, do you think?
It's such a tough question. We heard that COVID really played a heavy part in his form and his condition going into this race. I would like to see Chris Froome repeat what he did at the Tour de France, but a little bit more consistently. You know, go for the stage wins, forget about GC. But as he did on that Alpe d'Huez stage, he did amazing to get not just into the race, but fighting for the win on that stage. So I don't know what's next for him, but I'd just love to see him go out and try and target stages and big Grand Tours, Paris-Nice, Tourette, whatever it is, just at the highest level, and just not show that he's back, but just get the appreciation for all the hard work that he's doing. Because at the minute we watch him in a race and it's always focusing on him because of who he is.
Yeah.
When
or
he's
who
going
he was,
exactly, yeah. And there's a point where I do feel a little bit sorry for him because he is, that attention's always on him, and it's not remembering him and it's that great champion that he still is, but it's just looking at how he is now, which it must be quite difficult for him. So I hope he gets back up to the top.
Do you know, it's so impressive when you consider the success that he's had, that to even just arrive in Madrid has him smiling like that and taking time with the media. We've talked about his mental strength before, but it really is impressive. Speaking of impressive, let's talk about our two-man breakaway, who looked like they might have held it to the line at one stage.
They did. We had Platt from Ineos Grenadiers and Johansson of Antomarchi Wanty Gobert. I mean, the advantages Robbie described in commentary on that circuit is that it doesn't matter how big the peloton is, at the front of that, you're not going to be able to go around all of those corners any quicker than the two riders out front. Once they accelerate up to speed, it's not long before they have to decelerate and brake into the next corner. So once it got up towards 24, 25 seconds with about 12 or 13 kilometres to go, I expect both of them were starting to think, we might have a decent chance here. Both really strong engines on the flat as well. Platt, time trial champion in the past of Australia, I believe. Johansson's obviously done a lot of work on aerodynamics and he looked really strong as well. But even once there was a point where they were almost caught and then they managed to extend the gap again. And even once they were caught, Platt's like, no, I'm still here on the front. I've still got a chance of winning.
Accent there. No.
Yeah, it was so impressive. And Ineos Grenadiers as well, one of the arguably few teams today who were putting in quite a bit of hard work.
They were. That bonus sprint was brilliant to watch. I mean, we expected it, but it's just the differences between sprints. I think we can see it now. This Theo Gegenhardt kicking on front, he's got Carapaz behind him and Rodriguez. And by the time that Theo Gegenhardt pulls off the front here, they sadly have gapped Rodriguez. Sprinting's not his speciality with all those wounds on his arm. So it was very much a slow motion sprint for Rodriguez. But you got to tip your hat to them, you know, on the final day, just trying to get that 1 second back to jump over Aronsman. And then the big surprise was Mas coming over the top of him for the green jersey points as well. To get
carry UCI points in the green.
Apparently so. That's what I was reading online, at least. Is perhaps the reason he was doing that.
Yeah, that explains it. I should have thought about that earlier. But I was thinking, what does third in the green points jersey mean to you from fifth at the start of the day? But yeah, if there's UCI points up for grabs, they might all count.
Well, I tell you what then, if UCI points been up for grabs on the last stage means we get a little bit of a racing, maybe they're a good thing after all.
Yeah. No, they're not. Terrible.
What about our overall winner then, Remco Evenepoel? It feels like so much has been said about him already, and yet not enough can be said about him. A true champion, and it's just wonderful to see and to, I guess, predict what he might deliver in the future as well.
It's so exciting. I mean, I want him to enjoy this moment, even though he's got the World Championships coming up, before he then starts to think about next year, to really soak in what he's done and what he's achieved, because it's phenomenal, right? I mean, one of the youngest winners of a monument in a long, long time when he won Liège-Bastogne-Liège with an attack which was about 40 kilometres solo. That doesn't happen very much. I can't remember the last time it happened at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So to add a Grand Tour to a monument, potentially a world title in either the time trial or the road race, that's not outside the realms of possibility. If he achieves either of those, it puts him even further towards some of the greatest cyclists of all time. But even with just the monument and just the Grand Tour, he's already right up there with some incredible names, because not many people have done that in the past. So, yeah, it's been a brilliant season for him. I just love the fact that he's answered everybody's questions, because he was getting a lot of questions and a fair bit of criticism. and people just wanting to try and understand what type of rider he'd end up being. Would it be classics? Would it be Grand Tours? I noticed even he last night said himself, I might have to choose which direction I want to go, and whether I want to concentrate more on the one days or on the Grand Tours. And with the success he's had over the last few years now in both...
mate, he can do both. Come on, mate.
Oh,
don't
sure.
do both. Do it for our sake, at least. Give us the entertainment we need.
He can do it all, surely. Well, the future of cycling is looking very exciting indeed, isn't it? Let's hear from our 2022 Vuelta a España champion, Remco Evenepoel.
Remco, it's not a dream anymore. It's reality. You're the winner of La Vuelta.
Yes, now it really sinks in. You know, it's really official now. And already yesterday the emotions were quite high because you could feel that we were actually there. But you still have to finish the race here safe and on in a good way. And I think we did perfect. We enjoyed as much as possible, and now we can really enjoy it.
What did you think in the streets of Madrid? It's something you have watched on TV at the Grand Tours?
Yeah, you know, I had not much time to think because it was really a technical course and it was getting more nervous every lap. So it was not that nice anymore in the end. But I'm happy we survived and we are here now.
You realize it's something historical?
Yeah, for sure. It's history for the team, for my country, for myself. I think we can be really proud of what we did the last 3 weeks. Thank you.
You know, 3 weeks is a long time in bike racing, and I had forgotten until just now that actually Remco Evenepoel has been defending that red jersey since stage 6. That is so impressive, with a team who've never won a Grand Tour before.
Do you know the funny thing is with it? On stage 5, we were discussing, this is early for Roglic to be in the red jersey. Next day, bam, straight into it and never let go of it again.
Yeah, all the way to Madrid. Here he is. This is the stage in which he rode into red. I guess this is...
Feels so long ago,
doesn't it?
It's the first stage that Jay Vine won, so he was up the road. But Remco, in typical fashion, just decided, I know what I'm capable of, I'm just going to set my own rhythm and my own pace up this climb, and I'll see who's left with me. And the answer was only Enric Mas. He dropped every single other rider at that point in the race. But we kept on talking about the quandary that he must be in, that he knows what he's capable of up to a certain point, a certain number of days within the race. So does he take advantage of that, knowing that he is capable of taking time, but also might pay for it later on? Or does he ride more conservatively and hope that he has more energy left later on? And I think he sort of settled in a middle ground, really. He understood that he needed to take time somewhere to go into the red jersey. But I think he could have gone deeper in places than he did. He held himself back. The team probably held him back to a degree as well, because he's the type of rider that would like to go on the penultimate climb rather than the last climb of the day. But he didn't do that. He played it perfectly from start to finish.
Adam, as you said, if Primož Roglic had ridden into red at that stage, and given that he'd won 3 Vuelta a España before already, we would have been saying, surely that's great for him, but he will hand that jersey over and try to get it back again. But that was it never an option for Remco Evenepoel, do you think, given the team that he had and maybe not necessarily the confidence to be able to get it back again?
I think that they would have the confidence to get it back again, but I think the difference is when Remco went into red after that day, it was that big climb. It was a climb where he rode off, got all the seconds, so after that there was another big day. And I think for him, this was like I'm here, I need to test everyone, I need to see where I'm at. And because he got so much time on that day, he's not going to just wait and sit back. As Dan said, when you're going that good and you feel like you're going that good, you have to hold yourself back a little bit. But for Remco, you've also got to let him go and do his own thing. And he did that, got a minute gap, 45 seconds, whatever it was. And he just held on to it. But I can imagine the confidence that he took, the team took, so you can do this again. And then he did it again. And then that was it. It wasn't game over, but they were never going to let go of that red jersey. They were never going to hold themselves back, say, we'll push Primož into this, because you just never know what might happen. They had the time trial, which he excelled in once again. But I don't think they needed to, really. I think they were just confident in Remco more than any of us knew, really.
Do you know, such is the hype around this young man, Dan, that it almost escaped our notice on the day when he won the individual time trial in stage 10 in the red jersey, that was his first Grand Tour stage win. It's almost like we've expected him to have done it all already.
Yeah, I mean, I felt a bit silly when I only realised that about 24 hours after he'd taken the first stage win. But, of course, you know, he'd only ever done one Grand Tour before, the Giro d'Italia. Hadn't taken a stage win there. But because of what he has done, because of the number of wins he's already had at such a young age, you just almost in your head think, of course he's won a Grand Tour stage before, but that was his first one. And then, you know, that graphic reminding us of the average speed that he produced that day, 55.7 kilometres per hour. And that, having that sort of card in his back pocket at the Grand Tours in the future is going to have a lot of other people very worried indeed that even if he does lose time on some of the climbs and it's not much, if he can do that against Roglic, he can do that against anybody in a time trial.
Yeah, because that was the first time that Primož Roglic was beaten in a time trial in Spain, which in itself was huge. Let's speculate, though, Adam, because that's what we like to do. Let's not forget that Primož Roglic, his greatest adversary in this race, lost a key lieutenant quite early on to COVID, Sepp Kuss. Now, when we look at stage 14, for example, and Remco Evenepoel was being put under quite a considerable amount of pressure. It's all coulda, woulda, shouldas at this stage, but if Sepp Kuss had been there on this day, do you think Remco could have been cracked?
It's very difficult to say. He'd have made a difference, Sepp, because he could have been there, setting a tempo, making it even harder, and he could have split that group up earlier. Remco might have been, Primož might have been able to go on the attack earlier and had that support, but ultimately, when it comes down to these guys, I think Roglic, where he was, if Sepp Kuss could have gone with him, his teammate, he could have maybe helped him 10, 15 seconds to drag him out a little bit more. But in this instance, it was just mano-a-mano. And let's not forget, we're talking about Sepp Kuss, but Remco also lost Julian Alaphilippe in this race as well. So there's swings and roundabouts with both of them. But it would have made a difference, of course. It always does having an extra person. But it's really difficult to say on those steep climbs, on long climbs, what that difference might be. We saw Wout van Aert at the Tour de France with Vingegaard. That really made a difference. And that could have been a similar situation for Primož, but we'll never know.
Do you know that stage and that climb felt like a bit of a coming of age to me for Remco Evenepoel, because it felt like we were watching him revert back to being the young man that he still is whenever he was losing time and cracking, and it looked like those cracks were showing all over his face. And then within about, I don't know, was it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he settled into his rhythm and he regained the maturity that he's shown so far in this race.
I was looking back at that just now and thinking, he actually did throw all of his toys out of the pram, but then he quickly went and gathered them all back in again, where normally they're left out of the pram. It was brilliant to watch. I mean, looking at his body language there, just in that initial moment, it's like, I can't keep up with the best riders. It was just like suddenly lost a big chunk of time. I think later he said he went a bit too far into the red and he'd regretted that he hadn't just started going at his own tempo a little bit earlier on the climb. But nevertheless, once he did recover, he didn't really lose much time to Primož Roglic on that day from a certain point once the gap had been established. And that is the mark of a true champion, the good Grand Tour rider, that, as we keep saying, on your bad day, you don't lose that much time. Everyone has a bad day, but the riders that can't win Grand Tours will lose 10 minutes or 5 minutes that day, and the ones that can will only lose 30, 40 seconds.
What I think benefited Remco massively in this race is that all the climbing stages, a couple of days after them, or a day after, was immediately the rest day. So whenever he was taking time, he got a rest. When he lost time, he got a rest. And then it was a sprint day the day after. That's 2 days rest. He had a time trial, which is an hour. OK, it's an hour at your max.
Didn't really rest much in that, though, did they?
But it's always like the stars aligned in terms of when he could recover. Some of those days, the day we saw he cracked there, if he had another day like that on the next day of that, it could have been a completely different story.
I think there was a...
and he cracked then, I think, as well.
No, it was Sierra Nevada the following
day.
Well,
he lost a bit of time, come on.
Well,
no major
really
crack.
No major crack, but I think if he'd have had another day of that, we saw him on both those days lose time, let's say.
Yeah, we see some Grand Tours where it's high mountain after high mountain after high mountain. I think that's what you mean, really, is it?
It is,
yeah.
It was all the rest days and the days in between all that. He had the perfect chance to recover. So, as I said, it was just like the stars aligned for him, so he could recover and just be the best that he could do the next day.
And the stars over which he had absolutely no control either. If we look at stage 16, Dan, do we think if Primož Roglic maybe had less of a time gap to make up, or if he had a time in front of Remco, that he would have pushed it so hard in that final sprint and ended up in the position that Roglic ended up in? This is obviously
probably not. I mean, Roglic would have been fully aware that the final week of this race was not as hard as the previous editions that he'd won, and so if he wanted to win this race overall, he was going to have to chip away and hopefully land the knockout blow to Evenepoel later on down the line. So, yeah, I mean, the race, Evenepoel said it didn't get any easier. I'm still surprised he crashed.
He genuinely jumped.
Yes. So I just glanced up as he crashed there. It was a nasty one, wasn't it? But I think it would have been a different race if Primož Roglič had remained within it. As much as Remco would like to say it was no easier, he still found it hard, and Enric Mas was a great challenger. Mas is not a Primož Roglič. You know, Mas has never won a Grand Tour, whereas Roglič has now won 3, and all those other stage races that he's won over the last few years. So he would have put it all on the line, like, I'm going to win this race, or I'm going to make it blooming hard for you to win it.
It is difficult, though, to imagine, even if Roglič was in this race, that the Remco that we have seen would have been beaten. It feels like he would have won it anyway.
Yeah, he was always in control, wasn't he? Every time that he got put under pressure, there's only 2 times we saw him lose time and, let's say, crack. He didn't really crack, he found himself again, but it is so difficult to look between those cracks and see the weakness in him, because he didn't show any whatsoever. A smaller team each day controlling it, riding to their advantage. They never once in this race looked like they were under pressure at any time. Didn't look like there was a panic from them whatsoever. Every single day they had a plan, they stuck to it, and it just worked out so perfectly for him. So it'd be really difficult for me to think that he would lose that much time in ultimately, let's say, 2-3 days of racing, because the other 2 days were sprint stages. So, yeah.
Dan, as you say, no disrespect to Enric Mas. He has not been a Primož Roglič, but he put on a show for us, didn't he? He almost had him on the limit. Stage 19 in particular.
Yeah, there were a couple of times. I mean, I think in those early mountain stages that it was Mas that was just on his limit trying to follow Remco Evenepoel. But as the race went on, it was just great to see Mas willing to put attacks in, because, you know, he does have a tendency to play things a bit safer, to follow wheels a bit more, and maybe only put one dig in if it doesn't work, think, well, I haven't got the legs today, and not give up, but just cruise in with the other favourites or whoever he's with in that group. But at this race, Mas put it all on the line. You know, he wasn't happy with second place. He wanted to try and win. At the end of the day, he simply didn't have the legs to beat Remco Evenepoel, but at least he went out there, gave it his best and gave it a try.
He's been an absolute superstar, hasn't he? And it's difficult to imagine that back on stage 4 he was being reprimanded by a fan for not being aggressive enough, Adam. He certainly silenced that particular fan anyway, didn't he?
Have that in your face, mate. He's been brilliant to watch, and it's so nice seeing him from what he was at the Tour de France compared to this race, because he just looks like a new rider. He just was so enjoyable to watch, and I think for me it was surprising that first week when Remco went on the attack, Mas being the only person to follow him. It was kind of like, oh, where's this come from? Where's this? What's happening, sort of thing. And then the longer the race went on, he just never faltered. He didn't lose time. He was always very good in the time trial. We expected him to lose a lot more time than he did. He just really, I'd probably say this is his best Grand Tour that he's ever ridden in terms of his form, really.
I think that fan at the end of stage 4 was genuinely one of the best things that could have ever happened to him.
I was wondering this.
Just because, you know, we don't obviously see what Enric Mas sees online or what he hears from fans on the side of the road. So I think it opened our eyes and ears to what he has got to go through, because it sounded like that person was not isolated. He gets it quite a lot. But in that being so public and his response to him, that just rallied a whole load of pros and ex-pros and fans behind Enric Mas. It's like, you shouldn't have to put up with that. You're a blooming great rider. So, you know, now he's got a lot more people behind him, a lot more people supporting him and actually showing the support that they probably already felt but didn't express to him in the first place.
And this is the thing, he sounded quite flat when he was coming into this race, and like he wasn't confident in his GC ambitions whatsoever, or even his leadership role within that team. And possibly it was a case of just having a bit of fire stuck into his belly, really, with that, and thinking, right, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show all of you, these guys are behind me for a reason.
I think so, yeah. It was stage 4, wasn't it, where Primož won, and it was when that guy shouted at him. We didn't expect
maybe we
him
should
to be
try
there.
this. You're a rubbish pundit.
Raise your game.
Right, anyway, moving on. This is Milano, are you?
We're all friends, really. And this is, of course, for the stage win into Madrid, a first World Tour win for Milano, and certainly one that wouldn't have necessarily been expected within that team. I would love to be a fly in the wall within UAE Team Emirates for this entire race. Can you imagine if they were filming some sort of a documentary? It'd be fascinating.
It'd be a tired fly tonight. I think they're going to have another big party.
Yeah, very true. Right, well, let's get to our final stage yesterday, final stage in the GC race, because so many Grand Tours recently have been won by some 30 seconds or so. Given the fact that we still had over 2 minutes in the race at this stage, it was still so keenly fought, wasn't it, Adam?
Yeah, I think this was Mas sort of throwing it all in quite early on, 40k to go. He tried once or twice, but I just think he was on his absolute limit after that. I think he suddenly realised, and there was discussions between Remco. He might have said to Mas, "I'm feeling good, you're not going anywhere," and that might have just completely put him off attacking again. But that stage for me was very exciting for that GC with 40k to go, Mas going on the attack, brilliant. The way it was ridden from the start, but he just couldn't compete with Remco. He was getting more excited, the adrenaline running through his body, knowing he's getting that one day closer to Madrid. But it was brilliant to watch. It was great.
You've got to wonder with the celebration, the party that was thrown for Jonas Vingegaard on his return from the Tour de France. You've got to wonder what is in store for Remco Evenepoel. I'm flying back to Amsterdam tomorrow morning, and I suspect you might see it from in the air. All the partying down there.
What have you got, Belgium? That's great. Well, it was a lot to live up to. It was incredible, the scenes in Denmark when Jonas Vingegaard returned home after his Tour de France win. And I'm sure Belgium will come out in force to greet Remco when he comes back. He won't be there very long.
Is he going from Spain to Australia?
I'm not sure.
I think he will be. It's only a week.
That's true, yeah. The time trial's this time next week, so he won't be hanging about for long if he goes to Belgium. But it might well be, as Adam says, that he's going directly over to Australia, and so you've got more time to plan the party for his return later on.
From what we know of Remco Evenepoel, do we think he's going to enjoy this off-season? Because it can be the undoing of bike riders, and we've seen it before, but we know his season isn't finished yet. He's got big ambitions. He's talked about a double Belgian win at the World Championships, and he's talked about himself for the time trial possibly and riding in favour of Wout van Aert for the road race. Then he has a wedding to enjoy in the winter. He seems a serious kind of a chap, though. You'd imagine he's going to try to back this up quite quickly next year.
I think so. I think once the World Championships are done and he's finished racing, he'll sit down with his team and he will say what he wants to do next year. It won't be a case of what his team wants to do. I think he's in a position to say, I want to do this. This is what I want to go and try and win, and then plan everything around that. But it's like I said yesterday or this morning, the young generation is changed completely. They're not into, going out partying, not into drinking as much now. It's just completely changed. So I can't imagine he'll be going out, getting drunk and really enjoying life. He'll have some drinks, I can imagine. But I think he'll be quite serious. The hardest thing for him, I think, now will be being in Belgium and going training. Because it'll be so hard for him going out anywhere on his bike without people wanting to come up to him, wanting to go for a ride with him, following him everywhere he goes. And it's a lot when you're just trying to do your job and be as best as you can, when you've got Stein down the road coming and following you and shouting at you, "Hey, Remco!"
Trying to take selfies as they go.
Yeah.
We've mentioned his age many times, of course, and he has also won the best young rider of this race, which he has gone onto the podium to collect the jersey for this evening in Madrid. And we've joked about this, but it has been speculated on over the last couple of years, really, by observers in the sport, whether or not the prolific winning of such young riders in the last couple of years almost makes this jersey redundant, because the winner, more often than not, is of an age to be able to win the best young riders classification as well. Maybe we should genuinely have a best, I don't know, over 35s category.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there should be a best young rider competition, but just not the under 25, under 24, whatever it is at the moment. Because even Pogacar's got another year in the best young riders classification at the Grand Tours, which just seems utterly bizarre when he's won it twice and the first of those was already 2 years ago. So, yeah, I think they just need to look at the age as opposed to maybe the older one, but then that might be nice for some. But they're only allowed a certain number of jerseys and competitions within each Grand Tour at the moment. So if they did have the older one, they would have to get rid of the younger one.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's talk about one of the other jerseys then, King of the Mountains, which I think we can show you the finishing points for that. Richard Carapaz, of course, has taken the King of the Mountains jersey over Robert Stannard, and there's a theme to this, isn't there, in terms of doubling the number of points of those behind. Let's not forget Jay Vine was in the King of the Mountains jersey until he crashed out. But Carapaz, with his hat-trick of stage wins, has more than earned that anyway, hasn't he, Dan?
He has, yeah. I mean, I think Jay Vine probably would have kept it had he not had that crash that took him out of the race. But Carapaz, after that first week where he fell out of the general classification and clearly wasn't on great form, I think, like I said before, if you said, well, you're going to get 3-stage wins now, you'd be like, well, I'll take that. But I just liked seeing Carapaz with the shackles taken off that he would have had on him if he was riding for the general classification, because you just can't race in quite the same way. in the same note we were talking about Evenepoel and having to conserve energy, having to be a little bit more sensible, when you're doing stuff like Richard Carapaz, which is deliberately losing time one day to go on the attack the next day, it allows you to go up the road, it allows you to go racing, and that's just clearly what he loves, and also just what he's good at. I mean, I'm sure that he gets frustrated when he's going for the GC at a Giro d'Italia like this year or a Tour de France the year before, where he comes away at the end of it, he hasn't taken a stage win and he hasn't won the race overall, even though they're great results. I think the feeling of crossing the line first for him, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him in the future, not be too worried if he loses a bit of time in the first week and just start going for stage wins again.
What do you think, Adam? What next for him? He is a Grand Tour winner. He has won the Olympics, of course, as we're always reminded by the gold on his helmet and on his bike. Where does he go next? What does he do next?
Well, he's going to EF next year, isn't he? So it's a completely new team for him, be a new setup. So I think he'll have gone to that team for GC. That we'll have signed him for. But at the same time, it's just what pleases him, I guess. I think he really needs to think about what makes him happy. Is it all the stress throughout a 3-week Grand Tour, coming down to, as you saw in the Giro, maybe losing it? Or is it looking at the stages and going, as he did this race, I'm going to go for that stage tomorrow, I'm going to go for that one the next day, and if I can win them, amazing. So I think it would be really, if I was him, I'd be really intrigued to know what his thought process is, because as much as we like watching him win these races, I'm sure he loves doing what he was doing in these races without that pressure of the GC, but going out and having fun, and the way that he rides, that's not on numbers, it's just with his heart and his head. I'm sure he loves doing that as well, and it feels very good when you can pull it off.
I think he should target Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I mean, he was riding really well there last year. He was off the front of his own. I think he got disqualified in the end because he didn't have his bum on the saddle at a certain point. It was when they brought the new rule about not being able to sit on the top tube. But again, you're in those one-day classics...
How ridiculous does that sound? He got disqualified for not sitting on his seat.
But I think, like I said, you can just go out and race a one-day race. There's not necessarily that necessity to have that conservatism that you need to when you're doing a 3-week race and trying to go for the overall classification. So he's shown his form, he's shown what he can do in the Olympic Games road race by winning that. I think he's really targeting the first part of the season, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, because he's clearly got what it takes to win a race like that.
It's brilliant to see that Ineos Grenadiers brought him here, even though he's changing teams. They seem to allow him the freedom to be able to chase those stages, and then he's given them that farewell present. So it's nice to see that, because often we see teams and riders sort of parting bitterly at this stage of the season, and if we know that a rider is leaving, they don't get selected for Grand Tours.
They don't know, and that's one of the hard things about the sport and teams sometimes. If they know you're not going to be there next year, they don't want you to go and have success, which then you're going to take over. It's still success this year in your team, so let them ride. And I think that last stage really showed to me that, yes, he wants to get the Mountains jersey, but with Rodriguez suffering, they didn't try to hold him back at all. They just said, you can go in the break, try to get in the breakaway, try to win that jersey, and then see what else comes from it. And I bet they're so happy they did, because without Carapaz in this race, I know Rodriguez did a fantastic ride, they wouldn't have had anything at all. So it's, well, not lucky, but it's great that they had him there.
I bet their debutants have learnt so much from Richard Carapaz in this race. When you look at the likes of Ben Turner, especially Carlos Rodriguez, who's not, let's not forget, riding his first ever Grand Tour, Ethan Hayter before he went home, Luke Plapp, who was on the attack today, in the way that he carries himself, in the way that he presents himself, in the way that he is on the team bus and at dinner every night, I'm sure that those four, and even the others possibly, would have learnt an awful lot from Richard Carapaz at this race.
Let's chat about one rider who had us very excited all the way through, Mads Pedersen, because it's almost easy to forget with his hat-trick of wins and his green jersey that he started the race being the nearly man. He had 3 second places in a row, didn't he? And it looked like he might not get his chance at the stage win.
He didn't at all, and it was the point where it gets a little bit worried. We knew those stages at the start weren't typically the ones that suited Mads. He needed it a little bit harder. He kept fighting for it, kept going for the points, went in a ridiculous breakaway one day with some of the best climbers in the race, and he kept picking up points along the way. Sam Bennett had to drop out through COVID, and then it was just like a click of the fingers, got the finishes he wanted, and he just could not stop winning, apart from today. I've never seen him ride consistently in a Grand Tour like that. In the Tour de France, yes, but going in breakaways, but not focusing on sprints as much as he has done.
Do you know what I like about him? He's a hungry rider, he's a greedy rider, and it's nice to see that.
I do wonder whether he looks back at the efforts he made on those climbs and think, well, that was a bit pointless. Now I've won it by over 200 points, you know, to get the 20. But obviously he didn't know that at the time. I think one of those stages was when Sam Bennett was still in the race. And it was actually on one of those days that he took the green jersey away from Sam Bennett. So you just never know. You have to fight for every single point at that point in the race because you just never know what can happen. And it, as we've constantly said, quite often goes to one of the general classification riders, the points jersey. So he needed to do that, and he was capable of doing it and being consistent through to the finish.
Well, let's have a little look, shall we, at our final podium of the Vuelta a España, with Remco Evenepoel being crowned the King of Belgium, the King of Spain. And it certainly feels, Adam, like this is the start of something magnificent, not just for him, not just for Belgian cycling, but for all of cycling fans, doesn't it?
It definitely does, and it's for kids as well. Growing up, there's always been, you need to start riding your bike young, you need to do that full experience. Remco's proven them wrong. He's had a little bit of a history in cycling, but he started late, and just look at where he is now. It's unbelievable.
Can you imagine the emotion in Belgium this evening? The entire country must be crowded around their television screens, ready to hear their national anthem being played in Madrid. Let's have a listen. Gefeliciteerd, Remco. Enjoy your moment. We've spoken of Remco, we've spoken of Enric Mas, but we have not yet spoken of the incredible performance of Juan Ayuso, Dan.
No, only the second teenager ever to finish on the podium of a Grand Tour. A mere 116 years, I think, after the first one in 1904. So really remarkable. He's got the longest contract in pro cycling, so his talent was identified at least 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was. In the first year of the juniors, second year he'd already signed this long-term contract with UAE Team Emirates. They let him stay in the under-23 ranks for half of last year before then going over to UAE Team Emirates. So he's in his second year senior, and like Pogacar in his second year senior, he's finished third at the Vuelta a España.
Because we're talking about the excitement of riders to watch out for at the Tour de France next year, but as you say, Pogacar doing pretty much what Ayuso was doing now, he could be a really exciting prospect right in that mix at the Tour next year.
Got to be a strong team.
We'll get to that in just a moment, because we're about to hear from our winner. It's Remco Evenepoel.
I want to thank everybody in Belgium for the support, but I will thank some people specifically. Yeah, first of all, I have to thank my fiancée that I'm gonna marry in a few months. I think she's for sure the biggest support I can get, as well as are my parents. I think I cannot do anything that I did here without those people. And then for sure my teammates, they will also come later on the stage, so I think later we can celebrate them. But my teammates, my team, I need to thank them for everything they did for me the last 3 weeks. And also my 2 competitors here, they were really strong the last 3 weeks, so big congrats to them also. I think Spanish cycling is looking really beautiful for the next few years. So yeah, for now I'm really grateful to win this Vuelta, and yeah, maybe see you next year, maybe not, I cannot promise, but thanks for everything, and yeah, hasta la fiesta, ¿no?
Hasta la próxima. Bueno, Remco Evenepoel, que ha dedicado
Getting all his priorities right. Hasta la fiesta. I like that. May I take a moment to remind you, this man is 22 years of age. It's not just how he's behaved on the bike, it's off the bike. He congratulated and thanked absolutely everybody that he should have done, knowing the world is watching him, certainly the cycling world. Everybody back home in Belgium is crowded around their radios, their tablets, their TVs. He doesn't show a hint of nerves at any of it. He's just really impressive, Adam.
He's just really, really good at everything, isn't he?
You look a bit annoyed.
No, I'm not annoyed at all, but it's to thank his team and his wife and his family, all that kind of stuff is amazing. But then to thank the two people who are next to you who's been trying to beat you for the last 3 weeks, but then to also thank and to say Spanish cycling is looking good for the future. He's just so well dialed in with everything, with everyone's almost emotions around them. He's excellent.
It was a very classy speech and a very classy move, as Adam points out, Dan, to congratulate his opponents and to have a word to the Spanish fans as well.
Well, I think you might well have learnt from Primož Roglič before him, who the Spanish fans really admired, obviously, over the last 3 years, winning their race 3 years in a row. He had a huge number of fans in Spain, Primož Roglič, and I think Remco Evenepoel is going to get a similar number, even though he's just beaten 2 Spanish riders to the title. He's been humble, he's been gracious, and he can just be incredibly proud of not just the way he rode, but how he was off the bike as well.
There was a lot for Spanish cycling fans to take comfort from, though, isn't there, Adam? As Dan says, 2 Spanish riders on the podium. One of them essentially taking over the leadership role at Movistar from Alejandro Valverde, their greatest hero, who will leave cycling this year and who was celebrated today in his last ever Vuelta a Espana, and the other just 19 years of age with a huge amount of potential in front of him.
Mas is brilliant, and he's always going to be brilliant. Ayuso is the interesting one for me because he's so young still, first Grand Tour, on the podium. It is just unbelievable, and he's going into a team with João Almeida, with Pogačar, with Rafa Majka. I mean, if that team goes to the Tour de France, that is a proper team. McNulty, if he's back to the way he was at the Tour as well. And it's not just being in that team with those riders, it's learning how they do. He was ultimately on his own almost in this race. He had Marc Soler off the front, he had João Almeida looking when to attack him, then his teammates behind, Milano flicking his other teammate to get the stage win the last day. I think he'll learn so much from being in that, I'm going to call it the A-team almost, that the future's so big and bright for him. I just can't wait to find out what it is.
You almost see that team looking at Jumbo-Visma and saying, well, I take your 2-pronged attack, I'm going to match it, and we're going to raise it with Ayuso, Almeida, Pogačar, and anyone else we can find.
What can he do you think, with a team that's entirely built around him, though? Because we are joking, but they haven't been riding in full support of Ayuso at all. What do you think? What difference does that make, do you think?
I don't know if it would have made much difference to his result here at this race. Of course, if you're leading the race, you need that team support around you. You wouldn't then expect Almeida to be going on the attack or riding his own race at any point when you've got the leader of a Grand Tour. But he's obviously got room for improvement. He's 19. He turns 20, I think, this coming week at some point. But if he has a good winter, and if he makes another small 1, 2, 3% improvement, you know, that improvement at the Giro d'Italia or the Vuelta next year, I can't imagine they'll take him to the Tour de France next year, but never say never. But if he makes that improvement over the winter months, which is completely conceivable.
I think they almost have to take him to the Tour. So if you look at the team that Jumbo-Visma's got, it's actually said, we're going to match you and we're going to raise you. If they want to win the Tour,
good decoy.
Take your best riders. You imagine Ayuso and Pogačar in the final with McNulty and also Almeida there. They'll be like, right, bring it on, boys, let's have it, let's see what you've got then. So I really hope they don't just try and hold him back to say, we're going to let you do the thing to get your own, the Vuelta, to get your own chances. No, like, bang you in this Tour de France. You're going to have many years in it. Let's stick you in. You learn now, and let's just see how you get on.
I think we're seeing from the pre- and post-race show today, no, don't put Remco in the Giro. Straight to the Tour. Get to the Tour.
Exactly.
Adam, have you only contracted yourself to cover the Tour de France next year? You don't want any kind of top races at the Giro or the Vuelta?
The Giro will be fine. It's in Italy. It's amazing. But the Tour is the Tour. I'd just love to see... It's like what we always say. You want to see the sprinters come into the Champs-Élysées all lined up, but it never happens. You want to see all the GC riders racing out, but it never happens. But just the prospect of all those riders on the start line at the Tour de France when you read down that start list, you'd just be like, oh, this is going to be a good one.
Do you know what I really loved about seeing the 3 riders with the 4 jerseys on the podium there, Dan, is that sometimes the lesser jerseys, if you like, can be picked up by default, and you might see them on the podium at the end of the 3 weeks and think, oh, I didn't realise they were. But this time around, it's 3 riders who have really animated the race and made it incredibly exciting to watch. And that's a good thing for the jerseys. It's a good thing for the race.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, they have animated it. If we look at the green jersey, won 3 stages, Mads Pedersen. If we look at Richard Carapaz, won 3 stages, King of the Mountains jersey. If we look at Remco Evenepoel, 2 stage wins, the red and the white jersey. So they've all gone out there and thoroughly earned the win in that particular competition that they've won. So, yeah, you can't take anything away from any of them, really. All 3 have been thoroughly entertaining from start to finish in the way that they could be. So Carapaz was out of the GC, so he was a different type of rider to Evenepoel, but they've all ridden out of their skins for 3 weeks.
I'm all for teams targeting jerseys that aren't the leader's jersey. I think it makes for a really exciting race, and I hope that the kind of riders that we're starting to see at the Tour de France as well, winning these other jerseys, will mean that teams will see value in pushing for that and fighting for that, because it really animates the entire race around it, doesn't it?
It does. I think that for the likes of the Tour de France, when you look at it, I think we can write the green jersey off for at least a couple of years, because Wout van Aert's going to be around, so that's going to be very difficult to beat. But I do...
We say that, but obviously at all times anything can happen.
It could do, yeah, it could do. Pigs might fly as well. But I think for the jerseys, the mountain jersey, the yellow jersey, the white jersey at the minute, as we spoke about, is quite... It's just whoever wins the bike race, because they're so young at this point. But I love seeing the fight for it every day, because it brings a whole new element to each stage and every race when it's closely fought out. For like Carapaz, for example, he had to go into those last 2 stages knowing that he had to go get them points. The second to last day, he had to go and try and extend that lead. It got close from Robert Stannard at one point, but that brings so much more into the race and it adds value to what others are doing in that race. So I just think it's fantastic that the Vuelta, the organiser of the race, are not just randomly putting points everywhere. They're doing it properly and they're really thinking about it.
Well, it was a keenly fought battle on the road. It was a keenly fought battle off the road as well. Here in the studio, we were all fighting hard for our place on the podium. And fair play to Adam, because you did try incredibly hard to keep your last place, and that was difficult.
3rd place all
in the end. We do have extra points, of course, for our GC picks, and so myself and Dan get double points, I think, is it, for having selected Remco Evenepoel. Adam, unfortunately, you picked Roglic.
Yeah, you two are absolute... Honestly, I've just had enough of it. How long we got left on this now?
Obviously, we all went for Roglic at the start of the day, at the start of the 3 weeks. But Peter, our producer, decided that he was going to have a final little dig in Adam's direction.
You wait till...
Because it doesn't matter anyway. You were beaten so comprehensively that in the end, I guess it doesn't matter if you're beaten by 20 points or 200, surely.
We were beaten so comprehensively, Ola. Not just me, you were as well.
One of us was beaten by 2 people. The other person was beaten by just 1. Dan, however, has beaten all of us, Adam, I'm sorry to say, throughout the entire season. That is a record number of points with which to win a Grand Tour. 260 is your record number, Adam.
And which one of my wins was that?
That was maybe the Tour de France or the Giro. But you know what's lovely is we've all taken wins throughout the season, so I feel like it's been fair in some way, don't you?
I know who's going to have the highest morale going into the winter months preparing for next season.
You know it.
We do know it. We will be presenting trophies at a later stage in the season, because we're not done just yet. It is the end of proceedings from the Vuelta a Espana, but we will be back with a breakaway for the elite road races at the World Championships. We'll be kicking off with the women's race on the 24th and the men's on the 25th of September. Surely, I hope you will join us for that. That, though, brings an end to our Grand Tours for 2022, and what a season it has been for all of us as fans of the sport, but also for us here, having the privilege of being able to bring you the most wonderful racing action from the most wonderful of sports. A huge thank you to my friends here in the studio, Adam and Dan, to Robbie, who's been joining this race from the other side of the world, to Sean, Carlton, all our team out in Spain, and our production team in London, and as ever, to all of you for watching and for enjoying the racing with us. It's been a true joy. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Bring it home, for goodness sake. He's done it! Sam Bellett's back in the house. 2 in 1. race, and into the red jersey he goes. That is brilliant. So they're starting to think about celebration, and he does so. He's fighting through candy floss. It's going to be equally as sweet for this man. So will the taste of the wine for Vine. Hooray for Harada, for goodness sake. That is absolutely remarkable. Absolutely wonderful. Louis Meintjes, king of this mountain. Boy, oh boy, he emphatically makes the biggest statement of this race so far. Rose is going to get there, he's going to get on through, he does so. And look at the frustration just pouring out of him right now. Why didn't this happen before? Oh, that was big, very big. What a phenomenal effort that was by Richard Carapaz. He can't believe it. Well, you better have, my friend, because you have done it. Oh, and down goes Roglic at the very last touch of wheels. Oh, a bagatelle of misery for so many. And this is so needed by this man and his team. Oh, Pasha comes through, but it's going to be a wrap. My mountain, my race, my jersey. Oh, Pedersen takes it. He knows he's got it. That is fabulous. Carapaz, that was genius.
The tears are there, the relief is there, but so is the admiration from everyone who has witnessed this young man.
Oh, well, let's wait and see. It's going to be on the phone. Oh, my life. Milano. My goodness, it was Milano in front of Ackermann. He just carried on the drive.
If you're the strongest, and throughout the entire 3 weeks, the strongest man was Remco Evenepoel.